You know what I'm in the mood for? I'm in the mood to watch a scary movie. Well, let's find out. Oh, wait a minute. Somebody's calling me. Let me see who this is. Hello? Oh, you want to know what my favorite scary movie is? Well, I'm gonna tell you as soon as I re-rank all 7 of the Scream movies. Okay, bye, Mr. Ghostface. I'll catch you later. Sorry for that sudden rude interruption. Mr. Ghostface called me asking me what my favorite scary movie. He was gonna gut me like a fish and all of that great stuff. So, what's up, everyone? I hope all of you are doing good and staying safe out there. It's the one and only magnificent bird, Beak, speaking to you today. And in today's video, that's right, I'm going to re-rank all 7 of the Scream movies. So shortly, I'm going to have a list of things that I like and things that I don't like from each movie. And I will edit all of them on the screen once I edit this video. That way, in case there's something I don't talk about, or if you just want to see my list, I will already have that already typed up and ready to go. So, I don't think we should waste any more time, shall we? So let's go ahead and let's start with number 7. Now, before we get started, I just want to say I don't actually despise any of these movies. I have found things to like about each of them, even if some of them deserve the really low ranking. So, oh boy, number 7 will be Scream 3. Where to fucking start with this one, buddy? Let's start with the things that I did not like about Scream 3. Here we go. The logical gaps of there only being one ghost face. And by the way, this video will contain spoilers. So there's no way that I cannot talk about each of these movies without going into spoilers. So definitely keep that in mind. So yeah, the logical gaps of there only being one ghost face killer in this movie, which we know ends up being Roman Bridger, okay? So there's a couple of instances where there definitely should have been 2 of them, 2 Ghostface killers for sure. Like when, I want to say her name was Sarah Darling. I'm trying to think if that was the character's name in the Stab movie or the character in the actual movie, but the blonde-headed chick. But anyway, I think it was Sarah Darling. That's how much I rewatched Scream 3, by the way. I think it's, anyway, Sarah has gone to the studio offices to meet with Roman, and when she gets out of her car, there's a noise that Sarah hears, and she turns around, and right there, that could just be a random, I don't know, that could be a cat knocking something over, or something falling over, but if you think about it, I think that was supposed to be Roman's accomplice signaling Roman, telling him, hey, Sarah's here, get ready. I think that's what that was supposed to be. It seemed like it was just a random noise, but I think both of them had, if it had been 2 killers, the accomplice was signaling Roman to let him know, hey, Sarah's here, the next target is here, get ready. And then there's another scene where Sidney Prescott, when she finally comes into the picture, where she finds Angela in the bathroom, in one of the bathroom stalls, and Angela has a ghost face costume and a mask, and she's surprised that Sidney had found her, and she comes up with the excuse, oh, since they're shutting the movie down, I figured I would take a souvenir because nobody would care. And see, right there, I believe that Angela was supposed to be the accomplice to Roman and for whatever reason, they only went with the one killer. So when they have the set of the Stu Macher house in the set at the studio, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know Sydney, she goes to the house, to Stu's, house on the set, and I believe she goes upstairs because she's so, she's terrified that they actually recreated that fucking house, right? And she goes in the house, she goes upstairs, And I'm pretty sure that Ghostface wears a bloody, like, a bloodied body bag or whatever that's got the crime scene indicating that's supposed to be her mother. You know, when her mother was brutally raped and murdered all those years ago. And I'm pretty sure Sydney is trying to go out the window, and Ghostface ends up grabbing her, only for Sydney to push Ghostface through the table. Now, maybe this happens on the ground floor. I'm trying to see, this is how little I rewatched Scream 3, by the way, but I'm pretty sure there's a scenario where Ghostface goes through this table, Sydney runs into the house, she locks the door, only for Ghostface to pop out of the closet soon after, and you're telling me there's only supposed to be one motherfucking Ghostface killer? I see, that's what I'm talking about, like right there. How the hell is Ghostface gonna get up that quick, find another way into the house that motherfucking quick? I mean, from where the table is outside to the front door, it ain't that damn far. Unless Roman Bridger is the motherfucking Flash or some shit. I don't know. And then another logical gap is when about the third act is when they're in that gigantic mansion, right? And that's when Roman and Jennifer and then Tyson and Angelina, they want to, well, specifically Jennifer and Roman want to split up. He's like, I suggest me and Jennifer search the mansion while Tyson and Angela search upstairs. And Tyson's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You really want to go just walking around through this fucking gigantic mansion while there's a killer running loose? That is, all right, I will say that is a positive. Like, some of the characters' lines are like, okay, they get a little chuckle out of me here and there. But this is what I'm talking about. So when Roman and Jennifer go to the basement, Roman conveniently goes to this coffin, and, well, we don't get to see Roman, quote unquote, get killed, because eventually Jennifer goes to check on Roman only to find his quote unquote dead body, got a knife through the chest, everything. So at that point, he's wanting her to think that, okay, he's dead, that way he can go around and start killing people as Ghostface. So how in the hell is he, like I say, is he the fucking Flash running around that mansion when he, you know, this is when all of that happens, Gale and Dewey are already there, and Gale and Dewey find the killer's, you know, ghost face mask and robes and the voice changer. That's when they go to look for all the others, and then that's when Gale goes to the basement and finds Jennifer, and then finds Roman's dead body and all. Even though we don't see him get killed, obviously he ends up being the killer. How he faked all of that so quickly by himself, that's what I'm saying. That's a logical fucking gap. You notice that I'm very critical on Scream 3. So, oh god, like how he's able to just run around that gigantic mansion, as Tyson says, all by himself with no help is unbelievably amazing. I don't, yeah, there's a lot of shit that you can critique with Scream, but this is like one of those things, like, really? Like, I can't buy it. I cannot. Oh, man. So let's go to the next thing. The violence and gore is severely toned down. And I realized that there was at that time, or right around that time, and there was I don't know if I want to say the S word, but there was a tragedy at Columbine that forced, you know, investors in Hollywood, they were scared to release a Scream movie at that time. And like the plot that they were going to go with just so happened to, I guess, mirror what happened at Columbine at the time. And so that forced their hand to severely tone down the violence and the gore. And I'm going to tell you this right now, if Scream 3's if Scream 3's violence and gore was not toned down, Scream 3 would not be in last place. Nah, I got another one that would definitely be in last place. We're going to talk about it soon after we talk about Scream 3. Okay, like the beginning, the cold open part with Cotton Weary, that's probably the most violent the movie gets. And then aside how Tyson gets thrown off the balcony, those are probably really the only two times they can get away with some semblance of like, damn, that looks like that has some impact. But other than that, the violence and the gore has been considerably watered down because of, like I said, the Columbine incident. But anyway, let's go to the next thing. Sydney Prescott when she is not there. So, yeah, if you notice throughout the movie, Sydney Prescott is in the third one, not even all that much at all. That's because she was busy filming something at the time. I don't know what it was, but she was filming something else at the time, and that severely limited her screen time. Now, for this next one, both Nev Campbell and Kevin Williamson wasn't able to be involved in the movie, so both Nev Campbell and Kevin Williamson at the time, they had their own shit they were working on at the time, and so they could, some, for whatever reason, I guess because of time crunch or just other commitments, they could only afford one. They're like, well, do we bring in the original writer or do we bring in Sydney Prescott? Well, we have our answer. They did not bring in Kevin Williamson. I'm not sure what he was doing at the time. I wonder if it had something to do with Dawson's Creek or another horror movie at the time. I'm not really sure. Although, no, wasn't Dawson's Creek over around that time? Again, I have no idea. But I'm pretty sure he was involved in Dawson's Creek, I'm pretty sure. And he's done other horror stuff since Scream. Not much, I don't believe, but so they obviously went with Nev Campbell instead of Kevin Williamson, and the writing definitely shows in that. Now, let's talk about some of the things. I know it's all negative, negative, negative with Scream 3. There are actually some things that I do like. Dewey and Gale. Yeah, so if you think about it, this is essentially a Dewey and Gale movie, and this is where their chemistry starts to, I think, start to really take off for the better, for the more positive. And I can say, as much as I don't really like this movie, this is one of the things I do look forward to watching again and again, is just watching Dewey, or Dewey and Gale, Gooey, or or Dale. Now that's weird, just combining both of their names, but I guess if you had to combine both of their names, how about Gooey? No, Dewey and Gale. Yeah, so this feels more like a Dewey and Gale movie than it does Sydney, but they are able to squeeze in Sydney in there just a little bit, but I wish she was there more. Sydney Prescott when she is there, like I said, when she does show up, it's great. Those moments are pretty good, but there's not enough of them. No, there's not enough of them, unfortunately, but I think it had to do with scheduling conflict. She had other stuff that she was doing, I believe. I believe it was another movie, so they had to, yeah, that's why for large chunks of the movie, she's not in it, because she was off filming something else at the time. Okay, the killer, the killer reveal. I will say, Roman Bridger, for the longest time, I thought he was absolutely the worst Ghostface killer. But after the last couple years rewatching this franchise all together, I'm like, you know what? Roman Bridger, he ain't that bad anymore. Nah, he happens to be in the worst movie, and it sucks that he's in the worst Scream movie, in my opinion. But the way that Roman Bridger is introduced as Sydney's half brother, and then the motive, I'm like, okay, I can believe it. Just because I can believe it doesn't mean I agree with it. I can totally see where he's coming from. Where when Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mother, she had disappeared for some time away from Woodsboro to go to Hollywood, and she became an actress, and she had a child. And when Roman Bridger finally tracked her down, you know, Marine pretty much shut him out in the cold forever, and not having his mother's love. Like, okay, I can understand, but damn, you gotta really kill your mother over that? Holy shit. But again, I wish the killer reveal had been in a better movie. But yeah, this is one of the positives. And then let's go to the next one. The cold open, I think it's, again, I don't think any of these Scream movies have a bad cold open. Again, the cold open, we start off with a literal bang. Cotton Weary, he fucking gets fucking sliced and diced at the beginning. All because he did not tell, Ghostface where Sydney was, and I'm sure he probably knew where he was, but he just didn't. He would have rather died than becoming a fucking snake, right? Because at that point, the public perception of Cotton Weary was kind of like, some people loved him and all this shit, but because he was framed Candyman by Sidney Prescott, some of the public is like, I don't know about this guy. So he's like, you know what? Let me not damage my reputation any further. You know what? If I'm gonna fucking die, oh well. And the voice changer. The voice changer, this was a unique idea, if unrealistic at the time. But, like, think about it. You have the whole AI thing with Scream 7 and Stu Macher, and people, excuse me, and people were bitching and complaining, oh, Scream 7 sucks, it's bad, it's terrible. No, you just had your expectations set way too high in the hopes that Matthew Lillard was going to return. I did not think that Stu Macher was actually alive. Yes, Matthew Lillard is in Scream 7, but that doesn't mean Stu Macher was going to be alive. Not necessarily. And they did the whole AI thing. Shit, I think the whole AI thing in Scream 7 is a lot more realistic to where we are right now as a society than that voice changer was, but the voice changer thing was definitely a novelty. It was an interesting idea. I get that people hated it, but the more that I do watch Scream 3, that's rare. I don't just randomly pick out Scream 3. I watch it when I marathon the franchise, by the way. But the voice changer is not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, I think that does it for Scream 3. Number 6 is going to be Scream 5. Yeah. If it wasn't for the severely toned down violence of Scream 3, Scream 5 would honestly be in last place. Yeah. Let's talk about the things, oh my goodness. Let's talk about the things I did not like. Dewey's death and how it was done, how it came about. Oh my god. Radio Silence, I'm so fucking glad they're not involved in Scream any fucking more. Because the way they did Dewey, they done him like a fucking dirty dog in this movie. Especially the way that they killed him, and I don't know. Okay, like, if you wanted to kill him to up the stakes and all of that, there's a much, much better way you could have went about it. Instead of, okay, so let's go to the hospital where Tara is, and that's where Richie, he just so happens to be at the hospital, and that's when, after a while, Ghostface attacks Richie and Tara. That's when Sam and Dewey come to the hospital to come save Tara and Richie, and Ghostface and Dewey get into a tussle, and he shoots Ghostface a couple times, and he's out cold, right? So Dewey helps Sam, Tara, and Richie to the elevator, but instead he's like, you gotta shoot him in the head, okay? So he lets Sam, Tara, and Richie go on their way. He's going back to Ghostface he's got his gun pointed at Ghostface only for the ringing phone to distract him, and bam, Ghostface just stabs the shit out of him, stabs him in the stomach, stabs him in the back, and rips his stomach open, and his guts are spilling to the floor, and that poor fucking Dewey, like, goddamn, they did him dirty. They could have done that so much more believable and less disrespectful. They should have done it by a surprise. Like, how that could have worked out. The same scenario could have still played out. I would have changed one thing about it. As Dewey is helping Tara, Sam, and Richie onto the elevator, and as he's about to step into the elevator, surprise, Ghostface drags him back and the elevator doors, as the elevator doors are about to shut, Dewey is grabbed and yanked back, and he's being stabbed to death by Ghostface as the elevator doors shut. Now, doesn't that sound a little bit better than what we actually got? And I just thought of that on the fucking fly. I mean, to me, I'm like, okay, if they had to kill Dewey to, raise the stakes, you could have done it in a much, much more competent way. You could have had Dewey go out by surprise, like as he's looking to get out of there. Only for him to be grabbed by Ghostface at the last second, and he's stabbed to death as the elevator doors are closing. I don't know. I mean, that's just call me crazy that might have been a good idea. Oh god. So yeah, they done him like a dirty dog on that death. Okay, the killers reveal and their motive. Yeah, in my opinion, Richie Kirsch and Amber Friedman are, in my opinion, the absolute worst Ghostface duo out of all of them. I did a ranking several months back on all this. I'm not re-ranking them, but yeah, Richie and Amber would still be in last place if I'm being completely honest. Like, when we find out that it's Amber and Richie, they kind of give it away early on that it is Richie, because he supposedly, when he's at the hospital with Sam and Tara, he supposedly just started Stab on Netflix or whatever. So that's kind of like a dead giveaway that yeah, he's probably way more into the Stab movies than he's actually letting on. And well, that turns out that yeah, he's very, very much into the Stab movies, just into horror in general. And their motive about toxic fandom, like really, like I don't know. That might just be a personal nitpick, but yeah, I didn't really like the killer reveal, and I'm like, I can't believe this is the fucking duo that killed Dewey. Like, I was like, damn, more disrespect on top of disrespect. Holy shit. Yeah, I almost want to put this movie in last place and move up Scream 3. I'm almost that dead serious. And then, so Richie's other motive is not only the toxic fandom of the Stab movies and all of that, but he's so fascinated due to the fact that Sam is Billy Loomis's daughter, and he wants to paint her as the villain. Just because her daddy was a deranged serial killer doesn't mean that she is going to be, and they want to use that to frame her in a negative light. Like, I don't know. It just did not work for me. I like the Roman reveal much better. So let's talk about Sidney Prescott. Sidney Prescott being severely sidelined. See, I did not, as somebody that really likes Sidney Prescott, as a character, see, I did not like that Scream 5 severely sidelined her. It's like, what the fuck? Why is she even in the movie? I hate to say it, but if she wasn't even in the movie at all, I probably would have been okay with that. Because, like, holy shit, she only shows up for what? It feels like it's only about 2 scenes. It ain't much. It ain't much time at all compared to the rest of the movies for sure. And they were trying to do a whole passing of the torch moment and all of that. Okay, yeah, they were, but we saw how well that worked out. Yeah, that did not work out very well at all. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Scary Movie 6 is a better Scream 5 movie than the actual Scream 5. Because Scary Movie 6 heavily makes fun of Scream 5. And I think it's done in a much more entertaining way. Like, I'm just letting y'all know that now. Yeah, I did not like Sidney Prescott being severely sidelined in this movie. I hate to say it, but it would have been better if she wasn't even in the actual movie. And I don't like saying that. But here we are. But thankfully she's back, so we don't have to worry about it. Alright. The last thing I did not like about it is Billy Loomis's inclusion. Like, no, he's not alive. He got shot in the head. But when Sam is in the hospital, she's taking these antidepressants. And then after she takes a couple, she looks up and there's Billy Loomis staring at her through the mirror, but it's his ghost. Like, why? Why was his inclusion necessary? Like, I don't. They could have still told the whole story about her being his daughter without him ever coming into it. Were they trying to? Are they trying to frame him as sort of a good guy by helping Sam take out Richie? Like, see, that doesn't work. That doesn't work because, nah, Billy Loomis, he was a deranged fucking killer, bro. Like, just because, yeah, you're helping your daughter out does not mean you're a good guy. And what I mean by that is he's in the mirror and he's like kind of pointing down there being a knife near the wall or whatever. That's what I mean. And like really they're trying to frame it as, oh, he's not such a bad guy helping his own flesh and blood. Not necessarily, bro. Like, yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't excuse you killing Sydney's mother and, killing all of her friends and all the people that you killed in the past. I'm sorry, no. You're always going to be a deranged fucking killer no matter what your ghost is going to do. Yeah, if it wasn't for the severely toned down violence of Scream 3, this would definitely be in last place. And I'm going to talk about the things that I like about Scream 5, which is a very short list. The violence and gore, which is pretty good. And then Red Right Hand. What I mean by that is Red Right Hand shows up, it's a song, and it plays for one little quick scene, and I'm like, okay, I like that. But other than that, I'm not saying I don't like any of the characters or anything like that. It's just I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time with Scream 5 because it is near the bottom of the barrel. If it wasn't for Scream 3, it would be at the very bottom of the list. So, number 5, we have Scream 6. Now, I do think this is a severe step up from Scream 5. By a little bit, it is. I think it is the better of the two for sure. And the things that I really didn't like about this movie are the killer reveals. The killer reveals end up being the family of Richie Kirsch. That would be Quinn, Ethan, and Detective Wayne. Or I guess it might be Detective Kirsch. I'm not real sure because Detective Wayne does sound like a fake last name, and it's not really the first time they've used fake last names in Scream, so yeah, like, this is the first time that they had 3 Ghostface killers. Like, I guess they're a little bit better than Richie Kirsch and Amber Friedman, but it's not by much. I had to find some negatives about it. I'm like, oh, it's the Kirsch family looking for revenge. Okay. They're doing the Scream 2 thing, but it's not as good as Scream 2. Got it. And then the killer's leaving too many people alive. Okay? So, what I mean by that is you got some of the people that they attacked, such as Gail, Kirby, Chad, Mindy, just those are 5 people that I can think of right off the top of my head, right? Gail, Kirby, Chad, Mindy, 4. That's 4. The point is, they were hyping this up as the trailers and all this shit was hyping it up. Oh, this is going to be one of the most dangerous Ghostface killers of all time and all this shit. But they leave way too many people alive. Like, okay, the Mindy one, I will say, when Quinn stabs Mindy on the subway, like, she gets out of there, and the thing that doesn't make any sense about this, Ethan goes to help her out, even though he's one of the killers. I'm sorry, how does that make any sense? If your goal is to kill those that were involved in in Sam killing Richie, how is helping Mindy get to the hospital, how does that make any fucking sense? You would think that if they really wanted to kill the people that helped, that they find quote unquote responsible for killing Richie, you would think Ethan would want to kill her right then and there. Right? I mean, that would make sense as to what their motive is. The point is that, yeah, they just leave too many people alive. Those are really the only negatives. Let's get to the things that I liked about it. Scream 6, the violence and gore. Woo, that beginning, especially that beginning alone. The part where shit, what's the guy's name that kills that professor at the beginning? Anyway, the Flash from Spider-Man. That's the guy that I'm thinking about. When Ghostface calls him and tells him that if you come and find me, why don't we play a game of hot and cold, and if you find me, we can go cut up the Carpenter sisters. And then that's when Ghostface eventually leads him to the refrigerator, only for his I think it was Greg. Was it Jason or Greg? It doesn't matter. Both Jason and Greg end up they were both dead by the time we actually get to Sam and Tara and all the important characters of this movie. So the Flash, his partner is his head is in the refrigerator and it's all bloody and all that stuff in there. And my goodness, Ghostface comes up from behind him and he stabs him repeatedly. And oh my goodness, yeah, the blood and gore in this movie, absolutely top notch. See, this is what I'm saying. Scream 3 was missing this. But just from that setting of the cold open, the fact that you got somebody else running around killing people that isn't even the main ghost faces of this movie, pretty great. It was a definite change up at this point. The setting of New York City, I'll admit I like to change up from Woodsboro. Now, will they go somewhere else for Scream 8? Well, I don't know. There is a Scream 8 that has been confirmed. No matter how much shit people talk about Scream 7, Scream 8 is happening, you cocksuckers. Take that. I'm talking about the people that are hating on it just to hate on it. I'm not talking about people that have legitimate problems. Yeah, I'm talking to you, CL. I'm not going to say your full name because you are protected by YouTube. For those that don't know who I'm talking about, CL, he is he's a YouTuber, okay? And he decided to, because I gave a comment about a movie that nobody was going to fucking watch that he was reviewing called The Bride, and look at that, nobody went to go see The Bride, and he got all upset about it that I said nobody wants to watch this woke feminist slop, and he's like, you know what, I'll hurt his feelings, I'll attack his YouTube channel. So this person, he does mostly horror movie reviews, so that should give a bigger hint as to who this is. I'm not going to say his full name, but CL, fuck you, kiss my ass. But anyway, but yeah, the setting of New York City, I thought was a great choice. It was something different, and whether if they go somewhere different for Scream 8, I don't know. We'll have to see what they got planned for Scream 8. Now, the subway sequence, I was talking about this. So, Mindy gets separated from Sarah, good God. I think I'm combining Sam and Tara and coming up with Sarah. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Mindy, she gets separated from Sam, Tara, Chad, and I think his name, what was that guy's name? Danny, I think it was. So they're all looking to ride the same subway, but both Mindy and Ethan get separated from Sam, Tara, Chad, and Danny. So Mindy and Ethan have to take another subway, and they get on the other subway. And so you have this tight, close quarters situation where the lights keep on flickering on and off, on and off. And you have several people dressed up in different costumes and all this shit. And you have a couple people dressed up as Ghostface in there. Well, one of them is one of the actual 3 Ghostface killers. And the Ghostface killer gets closer and closer as the lights flicker on and off. And then you get to the final part of it, and bam, Ghostface is right there up in her face, covers her mouth, and stabs the shit out of her in her stomach. And yet Mindy survives. That's what I'm saying. Their plan is to we're going to kill all the people that we feel that was responsible for Richie's death, but yet they leave Mindy alive? Okay, whatever. Scream 6. But that whole subway sequence was well done as far as the tension and, what's going to happen, I thought that was a really well done thing. The fake out death. So what happens here is Quinn, she is in her bedroom, and let's be honest here. Even though Quinn says she's sex positive, she's a little whore. Like, because she's bringing all these random guys to bang all the time. Now, let's be honest, she's a little hoe. Like, let's not do the whole sex positive bullshit. No, 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 no. You're a whore. Just you might as well embrace it. Like, just stop trying to make yourself feel like. Just be honest with yourself. But anyway, after her and this one guy got done doing the deed, he's taking a shower, and Ghostface is in her room, and she's acting like she doesn't know. She's on the phone, or supposedly she's on the phone. Well, it turns out she was just pretending to be on the phone, as she is one of the killers. And we don't get to see what happens. We hear a lot of commotion in her room, only for it to be, Ghostface supposedly attacking her. There's like all the fake blood and all the slashes and all that great stuff to make it look like, okay, yeah, Quinn is definitely not going to be Ghostface, but they had planned that to fake her death so she could move around and, move around without being seen, because people would think she is dead, right? And so Ghostface sends them a video. So Sam, Tara, Chad, and Mindy are in the kitchen, and then next thing you know, they all get a video of Quinn being stabbed to death, quote unquote, being stabbed to death. And that's when the apartment attack happens. So I guess we'll talk about the the apartment sequence. That's when the door flies open for Quinn to just fly out of the room, and that's when Ghostface pops up and he goes on the attack, attacking everybody. That's when I think Chad and I want to say Tara, they get out of the apartment, only to they go back, only for them to be realize that they were locked out because they were fleeing. Just the both of them, they had the right idea. They were like, yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. Ghostface is in the apartment, but they realized that the others did not go out with them, so they try to go back and get them, only for the apartment to be locked, so they're not involved in the scene. So it's Sam, Mindy, and I think Mindy's girlfriend is also involved in the scene, because Ghostface stabs Mindy, or I think he cuts her arm or something, I believe. Mindy's girlfriend, Annika, gets stabbed in the stomach, in the gut. So she's holding her stomach, and she's severely bleeding out at this point. So the next door neighbor across from them, Danny, he sees that they're in trouble, so he decides to get a ladder and reaches it across the, you got the two buildings standing face to face. So with Sam's help, they both get the ladder across both windows, and they have to climb the ladder like on all fours to get to the other building, to get to the other side. So Sam goes first, then Mindy goes, and Annika is trying to make her way across, but they have the door barricaded in the bedroom, only for Ghostface to eventually bust through. And Ghostface, ooh, this is where he's mean. He's like just toying with Annika. He's moving the ladder up and down, side to side, because he knows Annika can't go nowhere, before he just ends up tumbling the ladder over, and there goes Annika. Her face hits the garbage can, and then she hits the ground. Yeah, that was a pretty brutal death. A pretty good sequence. So Gail's attack. So pretty much how this is setting up, Gail is in her apartment, and she gets a call for the first time from Ghostface, and she ends up getting attacked in her own apartment, and she is holding her own up. She ends up getting to this one-way closet where she's got it all sealed off, and there's only one way in, one way out, but I don't know why she thought it was a good idea to go ahead and get out of there, because there was only one way to get in and get out. So she decides to go out there to see if he really left, and he's taunting her, saying, you know what, you're right, you hit me, I'm gone, and all this stuff, and he's trying to trick her, and she ends up going out there, and Ghostface gets the jump on her, and ends up, there's a part where he ends up where Ghostface goes through the glass coffee table, I believe. Yeah, it was the glass coffee table. So she's going to, after Ghostface goes through the glass coffee table, she notices that he's got his knife in his hand and she's going for it to stab him, only for him to grab a big piece of glass and stabs her in the stomach and stabs her a couple times, and he's getting ready to kill her, only for Sam and Tara to get there to save her, because they decide to, not Sam and Tara, but more so Detective Wayne and Kirby Reed, who is an FBI agent, they decide to shut her out of this. So Gale is pissed, but then they end up finding out that Ghostface is already at Gale Weathers' apartment. So Sam and Tara, they rush to try to warn her, but when Sam is calling her, she's on her house phone talking to Ghostface at the time, and she doesn't really think much of it. But obviously Gale doesn't die, and I thought that was a pretty well done sequence. So what do we got next? Chad and Mindy. I honestly thought that Chad and Mindy were much better and less annoying here in Scream 6 than they were in Scream 5. Although I think they end up getting better, in my opinion, but we'll talk about it. The cold open, I had already talked about. The apartment sequence, yeah, I had talked about that. Let's see, what do I want to talk about next? Kirby Reed. I liked her inclusion in this, and the fact that she is an FBI agent. I suppose that does make sense because she survived her Ghostface attack from Scream 4. So she's like, yeah, let me do something. Let me get in an environment where I can have the ability to defend myself. So I like that. The bodega sequence, yes, let's talk about that. So this is when Sam and Tara are outside and they get a call from Ghostface, telling them that, they better watch their backs and stuff, that we're going to expose you for the killer that we know you are, and all this stuff. And see, that's kind of a hint that that the killer is related to Richie somehow. And so Ghostface comes out of the nearby alley, attacks them. So both of them knock him down. They go running into the bodega. This is in the trailer. And they're panicking, like, please call the cops, he's attacking us. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They don't know what the hell's going on. Then that's when Ghostface walks into the bodega, and one of the customers, like, whoa, buddy, you got a problem there? And he, like, bam, he knocks the shit out of him and stabs the guy. And that's when Sam and Tara go running further into the store. And, well, the shopkeeper has a shotgun, and the shopkeeper has to be one of the dumbest characters in this part, because he's got the shotgun pointed at Ghostface. And he's like, hey, buddy, and Ghostface looks at him. Boom, he shoots, and Ghostface is able to dive out of the way. Are you really going to warn somebody that just stabbed 2 people in your store? Are you that stupid to warn him and say, hey, buddy? And he's clearly looking your way. Boom, you give him time to move out the way. Are you stupid? Because not long after that, Ghostface unsurprisingly gets the jump on him and stabs him. And now Ghostface is walking around with a shotgun. I thought that was a pretty good sequence. Although there are some logical gaps in there, like the owner really giving Ghostface time to move out of the way. Are you serious? Okay, whatever. And then, let's talk about, I guess we'll talk about the Sam and Tara. Sam and Tara, compared to Scream 5, I thought they're better. I thought their characters were better overall. I must say, compared to the 5th one. Now, obviously, I think they were definitely planning on there being a trilogy with those two, but that did not happen. Okay, so what else do I want to talk about? We'll talk about the theater shrine. Yeah, the theater shrine that Gale Weathers finds, and when they go into the theater shrine, they have all this stuff from all the previous Stab and Scream movies, all this evidence, and then they have on the actual stage itself, they have all of the Ghostface robes from all of the previous killers at that time, and that was a really cool thing. And they just have all this different random evidence of, I think, Billy's shirt. There was a journal with specific drawings of Dewey. There's all kinds of shit. I know. Oh, and the TV that killed Stu, that smashed his head, all kinds of crap. I know there's a lot that I'm probably missing with that, but just throughout the previous movies, there's all kinds of stuff in there that was supposed to be evidence, but it's obviously in that theater shrine, which we know that Detective Wayne got all of that evidence to create that theater shrine in honor, in a sick and twisted honor of Richie Kirsch for his love of horror movies. So that's why that was created. What else do we want to talk about? Sydney's whereabouts. So at some point in the movie, we find out that Sydney is not coming to New York because fucking Paramount or Radio Silence didn't want to pay her what she was deserved. But anyway, that's here, neither here or there. All that shit is over with. But so they're like, okay, how are we going to write Sydney's exit? How are we going to explain that? She's with her family. She's with Mark and her and their kids. And there you go. I like that they didn't totally ignore her. That, Gail said, yes, she got a call from Sydney and said that, yeah, she's not coming, but she's going to be in hiding with Mark and the kid and their kids. So there you go. And the final act, while I didn't love the killer reveals, that final act is pretty good. Because you got Tara, I think it was Sam or Tara, one of them hits Quinn over the face with a fucking brick, knocks her teeth out, and then, this is before the killer reveals, Kirby, she comes out of nowhere because Kirby was with Sam, Tara, and Chad, but by this point, Chad it seemed like he had been stabbed to death, and he's out of commission. And Kirby, she gets knocked the fuck out for some of it, and she comes back too, and she's accusing Detective Wayne of being the killer, and he's accusing her of being the killer. And it turns out that Detective Wayne is the killer, obviously, and so she gets shot a couple times by Detective Wayne, only for her to eventually get back up to give Sam and Tara an opening so they can escape the killer's grasps. So they end up upstairs, both Sam and Tara. And this is when there's a situation where Sam is holding on to Tara's hand because they're upstairs, and Detective Wayne, he was shooting up at them, causing Tara to almost fall to her death. And you got Quinn coming towards Sam at this point, and Tara is like, you gotta let me go. You gotta let me go, because Ethan is, down there wanting to stab her. So Sam hands Tara the knife, lets her go. She ends up getting stabbed a little bit, Tara does, only for Tara to stab Ethan in the fucking mouth with the knife, and she twists the knife in his mouth, tongue and all, and she ends up twisting it and then just pulls the knife out of his mouth, and blood is just squirting everywhere. And then that's when Sam pulls out this pistol that she had, shoots Quinn straight in the head with it. That does it for Quinn and Ethan for now. So it's all that's left is Sam and Detective Wayne, and both of them get into a scuffle, and they both end up tumbling over the railing. And when Detective Wayne wakes up, Sam is nowhere to be found, and we follow Detective Wayne's point of view, for a minute. He gets a phone call from Sam after all this happens, and she's using the whole ghost voice on him, which I thought that was what they are alluding to, that, she ain't nothing but a killer, blah, blah, blah. So she, in this moment, is embracing that to just fuck with the main killer. And she even puts on Billy Loomis's ghost face mask and outfit and all that shit, because there's a point in the conversation where he says, who do you think they're going to believe? I'm a cop. Who do you think they're going to believe? And then that's when Sam pops around the corner, and she says, well, I guess the one that's still alive. And there she is. She's got the whole ghost face outfit on and all of that shit. And she pops out and just stabs him up and down all across his body. She gets the jump on him, and she's about to finish him off. She takes the mask off. That's when Tara walks in, and she is like, whoa. She doesn't say it, but you can tell the look on her face. She's like, whoa, what are you doing? And that's when Sam says, you know what? I'm not going to kill you. And then Tara looks at her and is like, really? And then Sam says, well, you know what? You did fuck with our family. So she takes the knife and wham, stabs him in the eyeball. And that does it for Detective Wayne. Ethan momentarily, but Ethan gets back up for one last scare, even though his mouth is all fucked up inside, only for Kirby to push over the TV that killed Stu, and that TV lands on his head and finishes Ethan off. So I know that's a lot. I got a lot to say. Holy shit. Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm going to take a bit of a break, and I will be back to finish the rest of this list. I will be right back. All right, everyone. I am back, and I had to take that little bit of a break because I did not realize how long I had actually been talking about this. See, I really get wrapped up into this and really get into it, and holy shit, it was an hour that I was sitting here talking about this, so hopefully we'll be able to finish this. So, let me see. Number 4. This is where the switch up happens. Officially, at number 4 is Scream 4. Yes. You might be thinking, what? He's got Scream 7 in the top 3. You damn right I do. We'll talk about it. So, the things that I did not like about Scream 4, only 2 things. I mean, it's not much. The weird filter on the camera, it looked like somebody had taken their fingerprints and smudged all over the camera in certain shots. And I don't know, or maybe they turned up the contrast or the brightness up too bright or something, but in certain shots, it doesn't look, in certain shots, you can't notice it, but when you notice it, you can notice it. I'm not sure why they went with that filter, and that's not a reason that I'm dragging it down from 3rd to 4th place. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's still a really good movie, but that filter, I don't, it's weird to look at. I don't know, it's weird. And then I'm gonna go with Charlie Walker. I don't know, I just don't find his character very interesting at all. And I find him not to be, I don't know, for him to be Ghostface, I mean, thank God he's not the mastermind. No. He's only the accomplice, but, those are really the only negatives I have with Scream 4. I still really like the movie. Now, from numbers 4, 3, 2, and 1, I can watch any of those out of order anytime I want to. That's how much I like them. Let's talk about the things I did like about it. The unique cold open. So the unique cold open starts with the beginning of Stab 5 and then the beginning of Stab 6. Am I correct on that? I believe so, but yeah, you have one set of Ghostface attacks that happen only for it to be one of the Stab movies. Then you have Kristen Bell stabbing I can't think of her name in real life, but she played Rogue in the X-Men movies. Anyway, Kristen Bell stabs her because she's like, you talk too much, so sit down, shut up, and watch the fucking movie. Which it ends up being one of the Stab movies, only for us to end up getting to the real timeline of actually being in Woodsboro for Scream 4. Some people are definitely jarred by that opening, and I think it's quite unique because no Scream movie has ever done that again ever since. So I don't know. What do you guys feel about it? Let me know, definitely. And obviously, Sidney Prescott. We got to talk about her. Sidney Prescott, I like that she is on a book tour writing her book called Out of Darkness, which that's going to become relevant in the next movie that we're gonna talk about. So she's an author, a writer. I'll just say writer. It's easier for me to say writer, but yeah, she's a writer. She wrote that book Out of Darkness, and she's on a book tour that just so happens to be in Woodsboro. And then there's, killer linking her, linking to Sydney, so she can't leave town because obviously the killer planted all of those book covers with the blood and the knife and all that stuff in her rental car. And then I like the fact that, when she gets her first phone call from Ghostface in the movie, she's like, "What?" Like, she's not even phased with this bullshit anymore. She's like, "What, motherfucker? Bring it on. Get your bullshit over with. Let's go." Like, the hell yeah. She's used to the bullshit. She's like, "What?" Like, she says a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. She's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. Just say your bullshit. Let's get it on. Let's get this over with." And then I like the fact that despite that she is shocked that Jill Roberts, her cousin, is the killer, she is obviously upset and distraught. But she's like, you know what? After hearing your motive, she's like, okay, this crazy bitch has to die. Yeah, she's my family, but my fucking family is crazy as hell. What the hell is wrong with my family? Like, Sydney learns that her own blood related family, she's like, damn, do I want anything else to do with them anymore? If anybody else is still alive in my family, before creating her own family with Mark. Like, no, her dad wasn't crazy, but I think he probably eventually died, but that's never mentioned. So I really like Sydney in this performance here. Gail, yeah, I like Gail Weathers in this performance because she has stepped away from being a journalist and she's looking to do writing, but she can't think of anything to write because nothing has happened in Woodsboro in a long time. And so when shit starts hitting the fan, she ends up getting evidence and news that not even Dewey and the police get. And I don't like the fact that, I know I didn't include it, but I'll just mention it real quick because it has to do with Gail. I don't like the fact that Dewey shuts Gail out so coldly. Like, bro, you and her were together in on these things in the first 3 movies, but now because you're the sheriff, you're going to shut her out? I would think that would give you even more reason to, let's see what you got. We don't have to let them, we can just keep it to ourselves, but like, he's just like completely shutting her out. Like, that's kind of like a dick move on Dewey's part. Like, holy shit, dude. But yeah, I think I do like Gail a little bit better in this movie than I do Dewey. Like, holy shit, dude. That's your wife and you're just going to shut her out? Okay, Dewey. Sure thing. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then I like that there's a part where they have to go to that what is it? They're having that stabathon or whatever, the students at the high school in that barn, and Gail decides to do her own investigative and follows them to that barn. She decides to set up cameras and she puts a ghost face mask on to disguise herself because I mean Gail Weathers would be a pretty recognizable face in that environment. So absolutely, she's got to disguise herself, and I like that. That's pretty cool. Like, she's thinking, yeah, I can get in there, and So she sets up the cameras only for Ghostface to turn them down, and Ghostface is setting up his own cameras. Ghostface attacks her, and Dewey gets there because Gail, thankfully, called Dewey to let him know where she was at. So in that sense, he did save her life by being alerted to knowing where she was going to be at, because she was smart enough to call him to let him know, because he didn't have no fucking idea where to go. That's what I'm saying. Like, fucking Dewey being a dumbass, shutting her out. Like, that didn't make any sense. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's like kind of one nitpick on this movie, but it's a small nitpick. Kirby Reed, I really liked her character, and the fact that it is Hayden Panettiere. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but y'all know who the hell I'm talking about. Hayden, I'm gonna just call her Hayden. I'm trying to pronounce her last name right now, but Hayden P. She was in, let me see, what's a couple of things she's been in? Until Dawn. She was in a couple of episodes of Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if y'all remember that, but I think her name was Jessica. She had the messy hair and the glasses, and I think she was in a cheerleader movie, if I'm not mistaken. Not that I saw, but I'm pretty sure she was. And then she makes her way in. She makes her way into Scream 4 and Scream 6. Could we see Kirby Reed again? I mean, it's possible for that to happen, but we'll see. We will see. I really like her character of Kirby Reed. We're going to go with next Wes Craven. Obviously, Wes Craven, what can I say? Scream is essentially his baby. He created it in the late 90s. And if it wasn't for Wes Craven, Scream probably wouldn't be created today. It wouldn't be what it is today. So, even though Wes Craven is long gone from this world, R.I.P. Wes Craven, you were a hell of a director. You had an eye for certain talent. You knew what the hell you were doing. Absolutely. So, thank you, Wes Craven, for the creation of Scream. Absolutely. And Kevin Williamson, yeah, we might as well talk about him. Fantastic writer. The original writer for Scream. He was the writer for Scream 1, Scream 2, and Scream 4, and he had a hand in writing Scream 7 as well, but he was the director for that movie as well. And then, of course, Roger L. Jackson. Gotta give him a shout out. The voice of Ghostface, absolutely. I could have included Roger L. Jackson in every entry of every one of them I like, but that does not have to be repeated over and over and over, but some of them will be a repeat going forward. But just so you know that I love the inclusion of Roger L. Jackson still being able to do the voice of Ghostface. Absolutely. He's been in every one of them as the voice, obviously. Well done. And obviously, I really like the violence and gore. That's a repeat, yes, I know. But this is where the violence and gore starts to get a little bit more like, wow, this is where it starts to pick that up. But Scream 5, 6, and 7 really utilize that later on. Especially when Olivia, the way that she gets fucking killed, she ends up getting slammed through the window, and then she gets violently thrown on her bed, and the way that Ghostface is just violently just slashing and ripping her stomach open. Oh my god, that is like, holy shit. That's like the first time. That was a shock because it had never got that violent. Not to that, not, I mean, we'll talk about Scream 1, but to the sheer nature of just how viciously he was just stabbing her over and over and over. Just like, they didn't hardly do any cutaways. Like, that was, and then when, after he gets done killing her, Sydney gets into the house, and then when Sydney goes up into the bedroom, she's just laying on her side with her guts hanging out on the bed. Good God. Like, that was, that was, insane. And in the way that, holy shit. You know what? We'll talk about it when I get to Emma Roberts turns it up to an 11. We'll talk about it. Okay. The killer reveals. So the killer reveals in this one are Jill Roberts, the mastermind, and Charlie Walker, Charlie Walker is simply a Jill simp at this point. So there you go. That's the whole purpose of Charlie Walker. Although Charlie Walker does have some of the most vicious kills in this movie, especially Olivia. Who else did he kill very viciously? Probably those two cops. The one cop that he stabbed was kind of tame, but when he stabbed Anthony Anderson through the fucking forehead, although that could have been Jill, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that was Charlie. I don't know. Jill's fucking crazy though, so it could have been either one of them, but I know for sure that Charlie was the one that killed Olivia because Jill was in the house across the street when this was happening. So definitely for sure. And then he killed he killed those two girls from the beginning. I think Jenny and what was that other girl's name? He killed the shit out of both of them. I can't remember both their names right now, but they'll come to me. I'm sure they will. But the killer reveals of Jill and Charlie. Jill, her motive is because she's jealous of the attention that Sydney got attention and fame that Sydney never asked for, by the way. She didn't ask to continuously be attacked by Ghostface over and over and over and over again. She's just writing that book she is writing that book out of darkness to write her trauma, to relive her experiences. That way people will be more known to what she went through. That's why she's writing the book. It's that all that fame with the beginning of with her mother, and then being continuously attacked by Ghostface throughout the years. Sydney never asked for any of that. It just happened to fucking happen. And Jill, she's so fucking jealous of that attention and fame. Like, holy shit. And this is where this bitch turns this shit up to an 11. So let's talk about it. So, Jill's boyfriend, Trevor, they have him tied up only for him to end up, they untie him. Well, no, they don't untie. No, they do untie his feet. And, like, they want to make it look like Trevor killed all these people. So, Jill is like, I'm not the girl that you cheat on, and she shoots him in the fucking dick and balls. Like, oh my god, that bitch is crazy. And he's screaming in fucking pain, and she lets him sit there and suffers for a little bit before she's finally putting him out of his misery, shooting him in the head. Oh my god damn, what the fuck? Emma Roberts, holy shit, she really turned that shit up to an 11, because like before the killer reveal, it seemed like, oh okay, she's just like this kind of sweet girl, but oh no, absolutely not. When that mask comes off, she turns that performance up. She shoots her ex-boyfriend in the dick and balls before shooting him in the head, and then stabs Charlie in the heart, and then stabs Sydney, and then she decides to stab herself in the shoulder, and she fucks herself up by running into the mirror, or into, not the mirror, but the glass picture. And then she decides to jump back onto this coffee table to make herself look like she was a part of the attack. One of the best Ghostface performances. But holy shit, she was like one of the ones that was closest to getting away with it, by the way. But she was opening her mouth too much in the hospital. And Dewey and Gale finally put 2 and 2 together just because she opened her mouth too much, Maybe not immediately, but they finally put 2 and 2 together, because when they get to the to the hospital, and Jill Roberts believes that Sydney is dead and she's in the hospital recovering, and Dewey's in there talking to her, and this is where Jill slips up. She says that I want to write a book, but I would want Gail Weathers to write it with me, because of our matching wounds and all, because she stabbed herself in the shoulder, and then Gail got stabbed in the shoulder, and then, Dewey goes back to Gail and tells her that, tells her what Jill said about the fact that her and Gail should write a book with your matching wounds and all. And then Gail is like, why, did she get stabbed in the shoulder too? And then she asks immediately, well, wait a minute, how does she know I was stabbed in the shoulder? Ding, that's when it clicks. Dewey, he goes running into her room. Goes running out of the room. There you go. See? Jill fucked up. Oh, these killers, they find a way to implicate themselves, huh? So, let's go to the quote-unquote alternate ending. And they even make a line to this. So, they're in the hospital, and Dewey tells Jill when he's talking to her that they're not sure yet, but they think that Sydney might just pull through. And she's like, what? She's like, what? I saw Trevor and Charlie kill her. Like, she's like, what? Like, drop the act, bitch. Oh, God. She's like, what? So, after finding that out, she, I was about to call her Emma Roberts. Jill Roberts, she decides to take the IV out and goes to try to find Sydney. And she finds Sydney, and then, Sydney's, like, realizes who's in the room with her, and she reaches to call the nurse for the, to try to get the nurse doctor for the call button. And she's, like, talking to Sydney. She's like, who are you, Michael fucking Myers? That was a pretty good line. Because, like, holy shit, you could do anything to Sydney. She won't fucking die. At least not yet. Here we are, 8 movies in, and Sydney Prescott is still alive. I like that line, though. Like, she's like, who are you, Michael fucking Myers? Talking about Halloween, obviously. And then those two get into it. And obviously, if Sydney was up to par, if she had not been stabbed in the stomach, she would have whooped Jill's ass. No fucking problem. But due to her stomach being stitched closed recently, obviously Sydney has an obvious weak spot and Jill has that advantage there. So she's pushing into her wound and she's like, how are those stitches? And she's being a real fucking dirty bitch and pushing into those stitches that were just recently closed, all because she's jealous because of Sydney getting that fame and attention that Sydney never asked for in her life. She just wanted to live a normal life, but all this other shit that other people did, fucked all that up. And Jill's jealous of that. That's, again, there's more shit that I was bitching about earlier. I'm just gonna let that go by. Jealous family members, that is a real thing that happens. So I'm like willing to let that go for stupid reasons, by the way. This is a stupid reason, but it's a realistic thing. Maybe not realistic, like, not realistic enough to try to go murder them, but the point is, jealous family members, that's a legitimate real thing that happens. So Jill, after she has Sydney on the ground, she tells Sydney that this is silly. The ending of the movie was supposed to be at the house. And Sydney says, consider this an alternate ending, like playing on a play on words there. I like that. And then it ends with, after Jill is distracted by Gail, so Gail comes into the room. Jill is going to shoot Gail, and Gail notices that she turned the defibrillator on, so she's buying her time to get it to charge up. And she has, Jill has Gail at gunpoint, and she's like, can I have one final word? And she's like, what? Please? She's like, no, clear. And Jill is like, clear? And then that's when Sydney stands up behind Jill like the motherfucking Undertaker, and she's like, clear. And just puts both of the defibrillator pads against her head and shocks the fuck out of her. So she stands up behind her like the Undertaker, and she's like, clear. And bam, she shocks the fuck out of her head. That was badass. Oh man, I really like to Scream 4. But number 3. Yeah, this might be a controversial pick, but I don't give a fuck. Anybody that has a problem with this, they can go ball up in a corner and go cry. Number 3, I got Scream 7. Now, I'm glad I did watch this one again. I can definitively say that I did enjoy Scream 7 just a smidge better than Scream 4. I'll talk about the things that I did not like with Scream 7, and honestly, it's going to be a very small list. As you can see, we just didn't get to know enough about Tatum Evans' friends. I mean, we don't really know anything. I think the most that we know about any of her friends is that Chloe's parents owned the bar that they end up in later. Like, that's literally all we know. There's not much info there. But honestly, that's really the only thing I can think of that I did not like about Scream 7. Oh boy, we got a lot to talk about. So the cold open, that was a pretty good cold open. I think it's in the top 3 personally. The cold open with Stu Macher's house being involved, and you got Scott and Madison wanting to spend a night there, especially Scott, and Scott is scaring the shit out of Madison. And there was one point where there's the animatronic ghost face, and then one point Scott decides to go to the bathroom or whatever, and next thing you know, there's somebody dressed up as Ghostface in the house, and in this dark part of the house, you see the Ghostface mask just popping out of the shadow, and I thought that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool effect, only for it to be Scott scaring the shit out of her. And then, well, Ghostface attacks both of them, kills Scott in a very brutal way, stabs him in the temple, partly where his eyeball kind of pushes forward and almost out, and then you got the whole chase sequence where Madison is running up the steps, and he's, Ghostface is tussling with her, only for him to fall over the railing, and she's hanging on to the chandelier, and she thinks she's going to be able to get back on the ground, on her feet on the ground rather, only for her to end up falling, and she ends up getting stabbed because Ghostface has got the knife pointed straight up. So he gets up after stabbing her. He sets the house on fire, and I really like that cold open. So we have Sidney Prescott / Sidney Evans. So yes, Sidney is back, and she has decided to take her husband's last name, Sidney Evans, but there are one or two characters that still referred to her as Sidney Prescott, and she vehemently reminds them to, I'm Sidney Evans, not Prescott. I don't think she's ashamed at the last name Prescott, but she's like, you know what, I just want to go ahead and try to escape that past life in a way by just taking my husband's last name instead. And I mean, that happens with married couples. Sometimes the wife will take the husband's last name, or the husband will take the wife's last name, or sometimes they'll keep their own last names. I mean, that definitely happens. So I don't know why anybody, maybe it's a little weird calling her Sidney Evans, but other than that, I don't know why anybody would have a problem with that. Now, and this is, in my opinion, this is a Sidney movie through and through. Absolutely, and I love it. I love the fact that they decided to bring her back, that Paramount went crawling on their knees to eventually give Neve Campbell what she wanted. You notice that? She didn't go crawling back to them. They went crawling back to her. You see how shit like that works out in the end? Ain't that wonderful? When they thought like, yeah, we'll just get rid of dusty old Sydney. We'll toss her aside like a old worn out bag. We think we got it all with Sam Carpenter, don't we? How did that work out? Paramount and them Spyglass. I said Skyglass, good God. Paramount and Spyglass went crawling back to her, giving her, okay, all right, Neve Campbell, what amount of money do you want to come back? We will give it to you, no fucking problems. And that's exactly what happened, because she came back, and I would be shocked to find out that Sydney will not be in number 8. I just don't see it, because, I mean, clearly they gave her the amount of money that she wanted, so, like, why would they not do that? I'm sure they're like, well, we got no other options. Because I'm sure Neve Campbell is like, well, if I get to be in Scream again, great. If I don't, there's other things I can do. But Paramount, they went crawling back to her. I find that very ironic, even though they denied her with Scream 6. See how that shit works in mysterious ways? Uh-huh. So, and in my opinion, I think this is Neve Campbell's best performance since Scream 1 and 2. That's how good I think the performance is. It's so great. And I'm glad they got Sidney Prescott. If we are to never see Melissa Barrera back, I'm going to be honest, I won't miss her. Like, Melissa Barrera, she got too big for her britches, thinking that, oh yeah, I run this franchise now. Please, Melissa Barrera, if it wasn't for Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson, and Roger L. Jackson, you would not be in Scream. Scream would not exist for those individuals. So if I was you, Melissa Barrera, I'd be getting on your hands and fucking knees thanking those individuals for the opportunity for you to even be in Scream. You think you're so much bigger than Scream? I don't think so. But anyway, enough about Melissa Barrera. Let's talk about Tatum Evans. So, some people find her annoying just because Sydney and Tatum they're not exactly on the best of terms at the start of the movie. But, I mean, at that age, especially for a teenage daughter, what mother and daughter haven't been at odds at one point or another? I mean, My mother and my two sisters were definitely at it, when they were around that age with my mother. So, I mean, that's very realistic. When I was growing up, absolutely. I was in the middle of two girls, and both of them were giving my mother nothing but hell. So, when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is fucking child's play compared to what those two put my mother through. I'm like, holy shit. So, it's like minuscule. So, what mother and daughter do not get into it, and that could be applied to mother and son. Absolutely, it could be. I mean, every family is different. I'm not saying every family is the same. Absolutely not. You might have some families where the child gives the parents no issues at all, which can happen. It can happen. It can. I didn't hardly ever give my mother any problems when I was growing up. Although there was one time when I was in school, I did cut school. Like I don't know, she went somewhere. I might have told this story before. She went somewhere and she was like, this was before the bus was coming to pick me up one day. And she was like, "Can I trust you to get on the bus without me being here?" And I said, "Yeah." And she left. And so what I decided to do, I took my school, my shoes off and all that stuff. And I was hiding under the covers, just waiting for at least an hour. And I decided to go ahead and cut school that day. But that's the only rebellious thing that I done. I wasn't that rebellious. I'm gonna tell y'all that now. But yeah, that's the only time that I that I realistically cut school, because I just said fuck school. I didn't want to go. Like, but yeah, that's the only, compared to what my two sisters put her through. I was a miracle child back then. Good God, like that's a conversation that we're just not even gonna get into. But anyway, I don't know. I liked Tatum because, yeah, some people found her annoying, but I found her to be realistic as far as her mother shutting her out about her past life, not telling her anything, and that's frustrating. And part of that is frustrating toward Tatum because she feels like if her mother tells her stuff about her past life, that they will grow closer together instead of further apart. And I liked that, but that is a little bit of Sydney's fault. But you kind of got to look at it at a certain point of view. Maybe Sydney doesn't want her to know about all the people that died, that got killed, but Tatum could absolutely look all that information up, but she would rather hear it from the horse's mouth herself, meaning Sydney. She would rather learn about it from her mother because, like I said, if she told her all this stuff, she would feel closer to her mother. Now, whether if they backtrack on that on number 8 or not, don't know. Don't know. That remains to be seen. I don't know. Hopefully they don't backtrack on that and they're at each other's throat again. That would be bad. After the shit they went through in Scream 7, like, nah, they don't need to be bickering at each other and stuff. They need to be closer than ever. As far as a mother and daughter relationship. So yeah, I liked Tatum more than I did Sam and Tara. Ooh, get the pitchforks ready. Oh shit. Let's talk about Evan. I like this Mark Evans character, and I like the fact that Sydney's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go ahead and marry a cop, and he happens to be the chief of police in that town of Pine Grove. So that was smart of Sydney because she's gonna have protection. She's gonna have a way to defend herself, and cops, they make a pretty good salary. I mean, I'm not an expert at that, but anyway, she's like, all I know is she's pretty smart to marry a cop at this point. I mean, why not? Let's talk about some of the most unique kills of the franchise. You know what? I might have to split this video. I thought I was going to release this video today, but I think I'm going to have to split it up into multiple parts. This video not this video, but this movie has some of the most unique kills, such as the way that Scott gets killed, the fact that Madison, she gets burnt alive, like, holy shit, that's cruel. And then how Hannah gets killed. And then, especially the Lucas death. Woo-wee. The Lucas death is 100% personal, absolutely. And again, the violence and gore goes hand in hand with some of the most unique kills of the franchise. the way that Lucas's skull goes through that fucking beer tap and the way that the blood and beer pours out of his mouth, like, good God, dude. Like, holy shit. So what can I say? The gore and violence is pretty good. Once again, Gale Weathers. Okay, so Gale Weathers doesn't really have too much to do in the movie, but with what time she has in this movie, I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. She, in my opinion, doesn't overstay her welcome, and her entrance is badass as hell, running over Carl with all four of her tires. Holy shit. Like, that's probably the most badass Gale Weathers motherfucking entrance in this franchise. She just pulls up on the scene by bam, killing a ghost face right off the bat. Holy shit. Hell yeah. And Gale Weathers is once again a reporter trying to go back to her roots from like the first couple of movies. And this is where we're going to talk about Chad and Mindy. So Chad and Mindy are now working for Gale Weathers as her interns trying to get into the news reporter business. And there's actually a pretty funny mid-credit scene toward the end of the movie where while Gale has taken Sydney and Tatum to the hospital to go see Mark, Gale lets Chad and Mindy take over the news broadcast. And Mindy, oh man, this is funny. If y'all have not seen that credit scene, go watch it. Go watch it. You can find a clip of it on YouTube. It ain't that long. It's where Mindy is messing up her lines and she's nervous being on camera for the first time. And Chad is just sitting there laughing at her, messing up and fucking up her own lines. And she even messes up her own name at one point. Yeah, I wonder if that was planned to be added in there. Originally, it probably was because they add it during the middle of the credits and it's just like real quick. It's nothing too important. And I just gotta say, I very much like the inclusion of Chad and Mindy in Scream 7. I think their inclusion in Scream 7, I think, is much better than it is in Scream 6 and 5. Again, they didn't overstay their welcome. There's a point where both of them get stabbed and they're down and out until we get to the end of the movie. And again, they don't overstay their welcome, in my opinion, and I much prefer them in Scream 7 than I do any of the other two. And I find Mindy more bearable in this movie than I do the last two. I find her just a tad annoying in the other two, but here, it's like she's calmed the fuck down some, and she's a lot more bearable to listen to. So let's go with the Evans house attack. So after Hannah, one of Tatum's friends, gets killed at the school, so Sydney, Mark, and Tatum, they all decide to leave and they go to the house. They go to their house and pack their go bags, but Tatum unpacked it, so Sydney's packing it up again. And so before all of that, the police, they search the house, but they don't do a very good job at searching the house because Carl Gibbs, who is one of the Ghostface killers, he's hiding in the attic. And of course they don't search the attic because they're dumb as hell. The cops are. They just look around. They don't really look in closets or attics or basements or anything like that. So Carl just waits for it to be Sydney, Mark, and Tatum all by themselves. And that's when the attic door slowly opens to reveal, yep, Ghostface is in the fucking house. That the cops, they didn't even bother searching the attic at all. And I thought this whole Evans house attack was really well done. You have this whole sequence where Sydney's going back to her bedroom and the lights are off, and Sydney asked Mark, why did you turn the lights off? And he's like, I didn't turn the lights off. And then the hallway light turns off. And that's when Ghostface has Tatum at knife point. And so they end up getting the jump on Ghostface, Sydney and Mark, especially Mark. And so Sydney grabs Tatum and they go running into her bedroom, into Sydney and Mark's bedroom, while Mark is fighting off Ghostface in the hallway upstairs. And that's where Sydney leads Tatum to the panic room that she has built into their closet. And by that point, Mark has been pushed down the steps and he just got knocked out, because when Sydney and Tatum are in the panic room, Ghostface can't get in, so they have to go through the wall to get out of the house at that point. And there's a whole sequence where Ghostface is like taking pictures off the walls and he's trying to listen in through the wall. And of course, Tatum wants to go with Sydney, even though she should have stayed in the panic room. But Tatum is the one freaking out. And so Tatum is the one that she's panicking too much and gets them found out. And so Ghostface starts stabbing through the wall. And Sydney ends up, getting his knife stuck into the wall to the point where he's got to grab a fire poker to start stabbing through the wall. And then they both end up getting out, even though Tatum is panicking. And they both get out, and they end up getting out. Ghostface, he's leaving the house to go downstairs, but Mark has disappeared, only for Mark to pop out of one corner of the house to jump Ghostface. And that pretty much ends with Gale running over Ghostface. So there you go. And this is going to rub people the wrong way, but I don't give a shit. I like the fact that the killer reveals are not related to any legacy characters. It doesn't matter if it's Sydney, Billy, Stu, none of the known characters. That the killers are just crazed psycho fans of Sydney Prescott. That's it. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm a long, long, long lost cousin of Stu or Billy or Sydney that you never heard of. I've come back to get revenge. Like, Now, you know what? I'm kind of glad they did not go that route. That Jessica, Marco, and Carl are just crazed fans of Sydney Prescott. Some people did not like that because they had their hopes up too high that Stumacher was coming back. How y'all like that shit? Look, I don't mean nothing personal by it, but damn, just let it go. Stumacher's not going to come back. Why would he come back at this point? Would it make sense? Would it make sense for Stumacher to come back alive? Like, answer, just take emotions out of the question. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they could still do it, but I feel like the opportunity for them to bring Stumacher back, I feel like that opportunity has passed them. This should have been the movie to do it if they were actually going to do it. And apparently they had filmed an ending where Stumacher was alive. Apparently, according to Matthew Lillard, and I don't think he's lying about that, but apparently test audiences didn't like the ending, apparently. So they changed it. So I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm kind of glad they didn't go that route, but if they would have went that route, I wouldn't be mad at it. I would just be like one of them people, I have to see it to actually believe it. So there you go. And that info did come out of Matthew Lillard's mouth, by the way. So, I think there is a lot of truth to that. Absolutely. But, it's done. I don't know, unless the new writers, the new director decides, hey, we want to bring Stumacher back. Even though Scream 7 teased that idea, they didn't do it. And I like the fact that, like I said, Jessica, Marco, and Carl were all super crazed fans of Sydney Prescott. And Jessica was upset at the fact that Sydney was not there for Scream 6 in New York because she is like, a ghost face attack doesn't count if you're not there. And she was upset. She was like, I couldn't fucking handle it. So I decided to put myself in a psychiatric hospital, closest one I could get to you so I could get my revenge. And yeah, so there you go. Crazed super fans of Sydney Prescott. I don't mind that. That is definitely, it's not the first time that they did super fans, that the fact that the Ghostface killers are fans of the certain protagonist or whatever. But this time it ain't got nothing to do with who Sydney's related to. It's because of who Sydney is, right? And the bullshit that she had to go through with all of the other previous Ghostface killers. Some people don't like that. I don't care. I don't give a shit. It is kind of a middle of the road reveal, but I don't think it's the worst one. People are like, yep, this is absolutely the worst reveal. This is the worst reveal, pal. Holy shit. Oh my god. I don't know. Y'all gotta. I don't know. Like, there are several. Oh my god, there are some terrible, really terrible movies out there that I've seen. The Cleaning Lady. There's a movie called Blood Car. There's one called High School Slasher, I think it is. Those movies are terrible. Now go to Tubi, go watch those movies, and then come back to me and tell me that Scream 7 is still worse. I dare you. I dare you. You don't want to know the fact that I'm going to be right. That's what it is. My God, The Cleaning Lady, that movie, god damn, that movie was awful. Holy shit. Blood Car was stupid as hell because the plot of that movie is gas costs like $32 a gallon and nobody can afford to drive anywhere. So this guy decides to invent a car that runs on seaweed milk or some shit, but he finds out that it runs on human blood, so he decides to kill every person. It doesn't matter if it's dog, person. He starts killing people, animals. It doesn't matter to get the car to fucking run. That oh god, that movie was so fucking. That movie was so retarded. I'm sorry. I know I just said that word, but oh, that movie was so fucking bad. It was ridiculous. There was no entertaining parts too. But yet, y'all were like, Scream 7 is one of the worst movies of all time. No, not even fucking close. Not even close. And then that slasher movie, the one with the high school, there was dumbass characters in that one. Oh god, you know what? That's a discussion for a whole different day. But anyway, what is something else I want to talk about? The bar attack. That was pretty intense. The fact that Ghostface Jessica was there at the bar, she attacks. Well, she's taunting Chloe at first, and then this is when Lucas and Ben are gone, and Lucas happens to be in the bathroom, and both Mindy and Chad are like, you know what? Have you noticed that the two most likely suspects are gone at the exact same time? And Chad is like, you know what? Nope, I don't feel like getting stabbed again, so let's get the fuck out of here. So they decide to get out of here. The front door is locked, so they decide to look for a back way out. That's when Chad comes up on Chloe, who has been taunted by Ghostface at this point. And Chloe, thinking that Ghostface is behind her, she grabs a knife and stabs Chad in the shoulder. And then that's when Ghostface pops up and just knocks him to the ground. Mindy gets a hit on Ghostface only for Ghostface to slash her stomach and knocks her to the ground. Ghostface attacks Chloe, and then Lucas pops out of the bathroom. He goes into the kitchen like a dumbass. He ends up getting stabbed in the stomach. That's when Chloe decides to hide behind the bar, and Ghostface is like, you know what? I'll have her think that I went out the front door, so I opened the door, and Chloe, she's dumb enough to actually come out of hiding thinking that, oh yeah, Ghostface definitely left her alive. So she decides to come up out of hiding only for Ghostface to attack her and drags her across the bar to the point where when Chloe falls off of the bar, a piece of glass ends up going through her throat and kills her, and then Lucas is still alive. What the best thing Lucas probably could have done here is he could have played dead, even though he was actually dying. He could have just played dead, but he decides to, breathe, and he decides to crawl. He decides to crawl toward the fucking front door that he doesn't know is locked, and Ghostface drags his ass back, and that's when Ghostface picks him up and slams his head through the bar tap, and the bar tap just goes just straight through his skull, and then that's when the beer and the blood come pouring out of his mouth. And that kill was definitely very personal because Jessica is the one that killed her own son. Like, goddamn, you gonna kill your own child? Because she's like, oh, he was too much like his father, so he had to go. Oh my god, you're a crazy fucking bitch. You're almost as crazy as Emma Roberts. Almost. You're trying. You are definitely trying your best I think you're better than Quinn and Amber Friedman for sure. I think, but so yeah, that bar attack was pretty good. And then Matthew Lillard, we'll talk about him, and then we'll talk about Kevin Williamson, and then that'll be it for Scream 7. Okay, so for Matthew Lillard, for the little bit that he was in Scream 7 as AI, I thought it was pretty good. I really liked his performance, and you can tell Matthew Lillard had fun with coming back as Stu Macher in AI form. Holy shit. The parts that he was in it, oh yeah, that was some of the best parts of the movie. People were like, I wish he would have been the killer. Oh, it would have been better. I mean, could it have been? I don't know. I mean, I'm happy with what we got, but I know a lot of people are like disappointed. They're like, yeah, Scream 7 sucks, but Scream 7 has made more money than any of the other Scream movies, by the way. So there you go. Take that in your pipe and smoke it. But Matthew Lillard coming in, he had way too much fun in this role, and you can tell he had an absolute ball coming back as Stu Macher for sure. And let's talk about Kevin Williamson. So this is the first Scream movie that he has directed. And he had a little bit of writing to do with it as far as writing the story. He had a little bit to do with the writing. A little bit, he had, I know it's in the credits. I can't remember who co-writ Scream 7, but Kevin Williamson was definitely part of it. And I feel like I liked the direction of Kevin Williamson's directing. I was fine with it, but obviously he's not coming back as a director. And I mean, he gave it a shot, and I feel like for Scream 8, they should have just been like, look, we're going to look for a different director, but we really want you to come back as the sole writer. That's what they should have done, but he's not coming back as the writer either. Which I don't know how I feel about that, because we're going to have two new writers that I've never heard of. I talked about them. They're going to be two women that are going to be writing Scream 8. Maybe they might surprise us, but I have never heard or saw anything that they have ever written. Apparently, these two women writers, the Zucker sisters, I think their names are, never heard of them. Never seen anything they wrote before. Apparently, they wrote a whole bunch of TV shows back in the day. So maybe they'll surprise us with whatever they got in store for Scream 8. I don't know. But yeah, I really liked Scream 7, so that's going to be number 3. Now, you know what I just realized? I have to go somewhere soon, and I'm not going to be able to finish this video in one full setting, so I don't know when I'll be back, but I will be back to finish out the top 2 just as soon as I can, so I will be back. Okay, I am back to finish this re-ranking finally. Man, this is taking longer than I thought it was going to. Most people would already be done at this point, but no, not me. I really got to get into it. I got to really get into the meat and potatoes of it. Y'all can tell I'm a massive Scream fan. But you know what? I loved doing this video. I thought it was going to be real quick. Well, that's not the case. So, like a lot of you I know that are subscribed to me, y'all have told me in the past that y'all were bigger fans of Michael Myers because y'all grew up with Halloween and not Scream, and that's fine, but by the time I was born, Halloween was already about 20 years old, or no, almost. It was almost already 20 years old by that point, and Scream was still pretty much an infant, like a baby at that point. So I like Scream more than Halloween. But anyway, let's get into this ranking, shall we? If I was to do a ranking of all 13 Halloween movies, I'm gonna be honest, that ranking would probably be a lot shorter, to be honest with y'all, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not a massive fan of Halloween like that. I enjoy those, some of those movies. A lot of them I don't care for. But anyway, let's continue with the ranking at number 2. Number 2 is going to be the original Scream from 1996. I know people will be like, what? Scream 1's not at number 1? Yes. No, it's not at number 1 because, that's what most people do. And honestly, I think the sequel is just a tad bit better, in my personal opinion, but I still really like this one. Obviously, that's why it's in the top 3. And let's talk about, you know what? I don't really have anything at this point in the top 2. I don't really have any things that I don't have a list for anything I don't like about the original, because I just don't, I can't think of anything. So we're just going to talk about the things that I like. Let's start with the original cold open. Drew Barrymore's character is at home. She's making popcorn, getting ready to watch a movie like most people would do. Of course, if they have the time, they want to make a little snack and watch a movie that they would, they probably already saw, and just relax and unwind at home. And then she gets the phone call. Oh, what's your favorite scary movie? And, what's your name? And then he's like, I want to know who I'm looking at. And she's like, what? And he's like, I want to know who I'm talking to. And she's like, that's not what you said at first. Like, being all creepy and shit. Like, and usually you would think that being in your home behind locked doors is usually, that's usually your safety zone, your comfort zone. Well, Wes Craven flips that shit on its fucking head in this cold open, and that is, oh my god, that is still, I ranked all the cold opens before Scream 7, and I believe that I had the original cold open still as the best one. It still has yet to be topped, because you're thinking, okay, you're in your home, you're supposed to be behind the walls and doors of the safety of your own home, but that ain't the case with the beginning of Scream 1, where Ghostface is like, oh no, you think you're safe in your home? I got news for you. Very creepy, very, very good, very clever. It's like one of the first times that people genuinely felt terrified. It was well done. And then the subversion of expectations for the final girl. Okay, so what I mean by this is, back then, Drew Barrymore was the bigger star, and she was all over the promotional material and all that stuff, and people are expecting her to be, just because she's front and center of the poster, that Drew Barrymore is going to be the final girl, only for her to be killed in the cold open. That was a shock for everybody, and then the final girl actually ends up being Sidney Prescott there, but they did a very good job at hiding the fact that people back then thought that, yeah, Drew Barrymore is going to be the final girl because she's probably the biggest star that they had at that time. And they did a good job at flipping those expectations on its head by killing her off at the beginning. And that was a good way to subvert expectations. There's bad ways of subverting expectations, and then there are good ways of doing that. And that was an excellent way to subvert expectations, because you're like, well, damn, Drew Barrymore's not going to be the final girl. Well, who the fuck's going to be the final girl? That was an excellent use of subverting expectations. And we'll talk about the rules to surviving in a horror movie are broken. Like, this is explained by Randy Meeks in the movie, kind of toward the end of the movie, how you can never do drugs, how you can never drink, how you can never ever say, I'll be right back, and then how you can never ever have sex in a horror movie. Well, I'm pretty sure all of those rules definitely get broken. At least all of them in the Stumacher house are definitely drinking. And probably some of them have done drugs, even if we don't see that happen. They probably have. And then Stu was like, I'm going to go get another beer. Do you want one? And Randy says, yeah, sure. Just be careful. He's like, I'll be right back. So Stu, he breaks that rule, which we know that he ends up being one of the two Ghostface killers. And then, of course, Sydney, she has the dreaded sex in horror movies that usually means death for those characters, but Wes Craven is like, you know what? Fuck that. We're gonna let our main character have sex and survive. We're gonna break those rules. We're not gonna just bend them. We're really gonna snap those rules in half, and we're gonna have the main character survive. And that was because you're expecting, yep, she's gonna die, but that's not the case. So that was a very interesting and unique idea at the time, because usually, oh, two people were having sex, they're not long for this world. Usually Jason will impale them for a 2-for-1 kill. I don't know which Friday the 13th movie that one is. Now, you know what? That might be Mrs. Voorhees, actually. I was thinking the very first one. Usually two people were banging, and then I know it was either Jason or Mrs. Voorhees that has that 2-for-1 kill with both of them in the bed. I think it's the first one, or it might be one of the sequels. I don't remember, but yeah, it's fascinating. You're not supposed to do drugs. You're not supposed to drink. You're not supposed to say, I'll be right back, or have sex. And all of those rules are broken. And we do get some survivors from that, which is very, very interesting. Next, who do I want to talk about? Sydney Prescott. Yeah, so we get our introduction of Sydney Prescott when she is on the computer in her bedroom, and then that's when Billy Loomis, he sneaks through the bedroom window, pressuring her into wanting to have sex. And of course, she's just a high school girl at this point, and she's going to school, and people are just like, when they find out about Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend's murder from the cold open, that, like, you hear people whispering saying that this is worse than, but we don't get exactly what that is right away. But then when Sydney comes home from school, she's watching the local news, and then that's when we kind of get a better idea of what those people, I think it was Tatum Riley, in fact, that said that this is worse than what happened to Maureen Prescott. As we know, that's what she was referring to, but we get a better idea of that when she, for a first-time viewer, you don't know exactly what she means, but when she's watching news at home, Sydney, that is, you see Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox, for the first time on TV, talking about that this is pretty brutal, just like the murder and the, I don't want to say the R word, I've already said it, the graping of Maureen Prescott. So there you go. And you kind of like, oh damn. So you now you understand, well, what happened, why she doesn't have a mother, only a father, and you're like, damn, that is fucked up, right? And see, that makes you instantly feel for the character, and she's not trying to make you feel, she's not trying to say it, she's not, just imagine if Scream, oh god, imagine if Scream was made today, and let's say if Sydney Prescott was a different race. Let's say if she was a black girl, okay? I'm just using this as an example, okay? Say if Sydney Prescott was a black female, and she decided to go to school or to the town, and imagine if she had a megaphone screaming, I'm black, I'm a victim, feel sorry for me, like how modern Hollywood bullshit happens today. Oh man, that would just make you want to kill her yourself, because she's trying way too hard to make herself like a victim. Like, for example, Rachel Zegler, she's trying to, when that Snow White remake failed, she was making herself like out to be a victim. And the same thing with Millie Alcock for Supergirl. Again, she's trying to make herself like a victim. Like, oh, it's not my fault that I ran my stupid mouth to help Supergirl bomb at the box office, but it's all the chuds, it's all the toxic fans' fault. Oh man, I am so glad Scream was created when it was, because I'm telling you, if they were to remake Scream today, Sydney Prescott would probably be black, Asian, Mexican, and she would probably be bi or lesbian, and she would be like, yes, I'm a victim of masculinity, I'm a victim, hear me. So the point, oh god, all right, I'm getting off the track, but that's how I'm telling you, that's how she would be if she was created today in modern society. But see, Sydney is not trying to get people to feel sorry for her. She doesn't have to try. Her situation with how her mother was found was pretty fucked up, and I mean, people can sympathize with that pretty easily without trying too hard. And she, like Sydney, there's one point in the movie where Ghostface calls her for the first time, and she comments on, and she thinks it's Randy messing with her at the time, and she's commenting on, the killer asks her, do you like horror movies or whatever? And she comments on, she's like, why? No, why? They're just all the same. It's about this blonde hitted, big titted blonde, dumb blonde that has big titties who run up the stairs when they should clearly run out the front door. And then when Ghostface pops out of the closet, she tries to run out the front door, but she forgot she locked it in the moment. So she does exactly what she was commenting on dumb characters doing. She runs up the stairs in a panic, but I mean, obviously we know she survives, and she's able to use the computer to call the cops, and there you go. Dewey Riley. What do I want to say about Dewey Riley? I don't know. I like the fact that, despite his inexperience, I like the fact that he's genuinely there for Sydney Prescott when he can be. And that right there, he is definitely a true friend. Absolutely. That's why it was such bullshit the way he went out in Scream 5 the way he did. And Sydney didn't even get to see him in person. And that just kind of, oh man, thinking about that, it's kind of tugging at the heartstrings. Oh man. But I like Dewey. Yeah, sure, this is probably his most inexperienced movies. But he becomes kind of a dick towards Gale in number 4, but I already kind of talked about that. So Tatum Riley, yeah, we'll talk about her. Sure, why not? I like Tatum. She's obviously Sydney's best friend, and she instinctively, once Billy is there at the house with the cell phone and all that stuff, and he gets arrested, Tatum, she instantly does not trust Stu. I mean, not Stu, I'm sorry. She shouldn't have trusted Stu, but Tatum, she doesn't trust Billy Loomis. And rightly so. And I believe that's, people debate whether if Stu or Billy killed Tatum. I think it probably was Billy, if we're being honest. Because Billy hadn't arrived to the party yet toward the end of the movie. So, I think Billy saw Tatum as a threat that he needed to definitely get rid of, as somebody who truly supported Sydney, through thick and thin. So, damn, she had one of the best deaths, and I liked her character for what we got. Stu Macher, damn, we'll talk about him, I guess. What can I say? Matthew Lillard. I'll be right back. Oh man, he has some of the funniest fucking lines in the movie. And some people, I don't know, do you guys prefer Billy Loomis or Stu Macher as Ghostface? Some people are split on this, to be honest, and I can see why. Some people have Billy Loomis and Stu Macher as their favorite Ghostface duo, and I get that, but I feel like that's the safe option. I would definitely have them at number 2, but I don't have them as my top tier favorite. But I feel like that's the safe option, and I can't blame people for wanting to go the safe option. But yeah, Stu Macher, Matthew Lillard, that performance is pretty fucking great. Especially when Sydney asks him what is his His motive, he's like peer pressure. And then when Sydney's on the phone with him after she's hiding, Stu is like, "Did you really call the cops?" And he's like, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." Yeah, that's what he's worried about after he didn't kill all the people that he's killed. He's worried about, "Oh, my mom and my dad are gonna be so mad at me." Oh shit. You know what? We'll talk about Randy. I like Randy. Randy Meeks. He was explaining the rules about don't do drugs, don't drink, don't say I'll be right back, and don't have sex. So he was laying out the ground rules that were all clearly broken from earlier. I like how he's a horror movie expert. He's like, there's one simple rule to this. Everybody's a suspect. Is he wrong? Oh shit. So Randy, he's great. He's great in both the first two. Wes Craven, yeah, Wes Craven. If it was not for Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson and Roger L. Jackson, Scream wouldn't be what it is today. You have the iconic director, you have the iconic writer, Kevin Williamson, and then, of course, you have the iconic voice that has been Roger L. Jackson. He's been doing this shit for 30 years. 30 years. Man, if it wasn't for those three, I mean, obviously, Wes Craven, he's not here anymore, sadly, but you still have Kevin Williamson and Roger L. Jackson. You can always do more Scream movies with different directors, obviously. But some people I could see like, well, without Wes Craven, it doesn't feel as good. And I could kind of see their point, but I'm such a sucker for Scream. Even the ones that I don't like, there are stuff I still like about them. So yeah, Wes Craven created this, this Scream is essentially his child. He brought it into the world. Do you think anybody today would be creative as he was to bring it into today's modern society? It wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't be nowhere near as good. Let's be honest. And Kevin Williamson's genius of writing, like, yes. Some of the best Scream movies are the ones that he wrote, which makes sense. I wish he was the sole writer for Scream 8, but let's see what we have with the Zucker sisters for Scream 8. Let's see. I've never heard of them before, but we will see. Now, what I mean for this one, game changer for horror. So, by this point, or before then, slashers were kind of like the same old repetitive, been there, done that. But back then, how this was orchestrated, how it was created, Scream really changed the game for horror. And you could attribute that to real life because, and the reason why you could attribute that to real life is because caller ID sales went up because of Scream. Can you believe that shit? Yeah, people were so afraid that they were going to get phone calls like that because, like the phone calls that happen in Scream. Yeah, caller ID went up because of Scream. Like, think of how crazy that shit is. Like, I'm sure back then the caller ID companies were happy to be making those profits, and they were probably thinking Scream. Damn. So, the obvious is still shocking. Okay, so what I mean by that is when Billy Loomis is at the house, at the Prescott house, and he's got the phone and it drops out of his pocket, and, it's one of those cell phones that's hip and new at the time, and obviously Billy was the one making the calls, and Stu Macher was the one that attacked her, and he goes to jail, and they keep him overnight, and they check the calls, and the calls is clean and all of that, but he probably had a different phone. But the point is, the killer calls Sydney later on and says that, look, it looks like you fingered the wrong guy again. Boyfriend Billy doesn't stand a chance around you. And then later, it turns out that they had the right guy the whole time. That's a great way of making us think that, okay, the boyfriend, the creepy boyfriend was there. He must be the killer, but it's way too fucking obvious. But it ended up being him the whole time with an accomplice. And that's a great way of the obvious still being shocking and still being pretty good. There are times where the obvious it ends up being really bad, but this is one of those rare instances that, okay, yeah, the obvious is actually pretty good here. Where the obvious is pretty bad, in my opinion, is with Scream 5. Richie being one of the killers, like, yeah, that was pretty bad. Like, and if you pay attention on multiple viewings, it's pretty fucking obvious that Richie is the killer from the get-go, and it's like badly done. See, here, yes, they make Billy Loomis pretty fucking obvious, but they do it in such a way where you're thinking for a minute, you're thinking, okay, no, wait a minute, it's got to be too obvious, but then it ends up being the case that Billy Loomis is the killer. Very well done. And yeah, we'll talk about the killer reveals and then the violence and gore. The violence and gore was done pretty well when at the beginning where Casey, that was her name, Drew Barrymore's character, Casey Becker, when her boyfriend Steven, I think his name is Steven or Steve, when Steven has his guts pouring out from him, you know, just when he gets his stomach cut open there at the beginning when he's tied up, man, that was pretty nasty back then. And then the way that Casey Becker is brutally murdered, and then how she's hung all around with the swing in the tree, and how she's just a swinging, and then the parents come in looking for her, and you know they put the fire out from the burning popcorn on the stove, and the mother hears her, hears her labored breaths from her being murdered and dragged away. The mother's all panicked and freaked out in that situation. What parent wouldn't be, and that was really well done. And then when the mother, she's getting ready to go to the Mackenzies, when she steps out on the front porch, there's Casey there swinging in the tree and all tangled up in the swing. And that blood curdling scream, oh my God, you could just feel her pain right there. You could feel the actress's pain, even though she's just acting. You could feel as if as if she was a real mother and that was her real child that she just found dead hanging in the tree. Like, oh my God, that was done in a very brutal way where they didn't have to show much, but it was still done in a well done way where you could still feel you could just feel the heartache for this character who she just found her child like that. That was some very, very good stuff. And then the killer reveals of Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. Again, we're going to get the obvious. Billy Loomis was the obvious choice, kind of way too obvious, but they did it in such a clever way where it works. And then Stu Macher, that was an interesting pick, but you could kind of see it because his performance has been pretty good, but when he is the killer, he really turns it up. So, oh my goodness, the killer reveal, one of the best killer reveals out there for sure. I really like Scream 1. It's not my number one, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So let's go to my number one favorite Scream movie. That would be Scream 2. Yes, we have the sequel ahead of the first movie, and there's actually a great discussion on, a better sequel debate, which we will get to. And that doesn't only apply to Scream, by the way. That applies to other movies. So let's go with the bold, cold open. So what I mean by that is you have both, their names are escaping me right now, but Jada Pinkett Smith and, is it Mike? No. Is it Edward? Shit, I can't remember the names. Oh, shit. See, their names are escaping me. But anyway, Jada Pinkett Smith's character and her boyfriend's character are going to go see that movie Stab, and they're at the movie theater surrounded with a bunch of other people. And then the boyfriend decides to go to No, I'm sorry, Jada Pinkett Smith. She wants to go get a popcorn and a Pepsi. Who the fuck would want a Pepsi? But I guess that's all they have. I'm more of a Coca-Cola person myself, but that's another debate for another time. But anyway, she goes to get a popcorn after asking for her boyfriend's money. She's like, I got my money. I want your money. I mean, that's realistic. That's very realistic. Unfortunately for us men out there. But anyway, she goes to get the popcorn and the soda, and the boyfriend decides to take the opportunity to scare the shit out of her by putting on the ghost face mask that the movie theater has provided to the customers for the night, and as a way to promote the movie Stab. And he scares the shit out of her, and then he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And he's like, let's go see that Sandra Bullock show that you wanted to go see. And she's like, well, it's already too late, so we might as well stay. And she goes to find her seat. He goes to the bathroom, and he hears like somebody saying, "Oh, mommy," or he was like hearing this weird shit on, through one of the stalls in the bathroom, and he puts his ear, seeing if he can hear something funny, and then that's when the Ghostface Killer. This might be a little unrealistic, but they're like, you know what? It's a movie. We got to do it. The Ghostface Killer pulls his knife out and wham, stabs the guy through the ear, through the fucking bathroom stall. And yeah, like he's sitting there bleeding out. And so the killer, he decides to wait for everybody that's in the bathroom to get out of there. And he decides to put the boyfriend's clothes on and goes back to the theater. And you notice he doesn't say anything, but Jada Pinkett Smith is oblivious to the fact that he hasn't said a word, but he's still got the mask on, obviously to help hide his identity. And there's a certain sequence where she gets scared and she's touching his jacket, and she looks on her hands and notices that there's blood. And then that's when he pulls the knife out and stabs her right there in front of everybody. Everybody's so oblivious, and everybody's into the movie that much that when she does get up to scream, and he's like, he's kind of not running after her, but he's after her while everybody's roughhousing and cheering and into the movie. He decides to get up and stab her, and they see them, but they think it's part of the act. They don't know it's an actual murder being committed until it's way too late. He done got out of there. She gets up to the screen and she is screaming, and you see the blood dripping from her mouth, and she collapses dead, and that stops everything, and he's gone by that point. So that's what I mean. That's the first time that Ghostface has committed a murder in front of a whole bunch of people, and people thought it was just part of the act. They didn't know no better until it was already too late. And again, this is one of those, that's why I call it a bold cold open. Okay, the next thing we're gonna talk about is bigger sequel, bigger body count. So Scream 2 does in fact have a bigger body count. In fact, they do follow that rule. You're a sequel, you got to do bigger things, more people got to die, and more people do die in this one than the first one. The first movie only, I say only, but 7 people die in Scream 1. As to Scream 2, 10 people actually get killed. Yeah, so there you go. They stayed true to their word that, yeah, more people die in the sequel, and that is true in this case. So 10 people. I like the fact that, they got this tagline, it's a bigger sequel, that means it's going to be a bigger body count, and they follow through on that with 10 people versus 7 from the first one. So there you go. Now we're going to get to the sequel debate. And what I mean by that, there is a class near the beginning of the movie. It's Randy, and then it's Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. They're all talking about, if sequels are superior to the first of their movies. Like, for example, Terminator and then Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Alien and Aliens, and then Godfather 1 and then Godfather Part 2. That's all brought up, and in some of those cases, Those sequels are better than the original, and I truly believe that Terminator 2 Judgment Day is in fact better than the original, and that's probably James Cameron's probably still his best movie. Fuck all the Avatar movies, those are mid and overrated as hell. Just like looking at, ooh, look at all the pretty colors for 3.5 hours. Okay, but what story are the Avatar movies telling? I still can't get people to tell me what the fucking story of Avatar is because there ain't no story to Avatar. But somehow they got three of them because they made money. That's why. I don't get why they've made money. That one I don't understand, but they have made money. But James Cameron's best work is still Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and you're not fight me on it. I'm telling you, like that movie had an actual cohesive story, unlike fucking Avatar. Even the first one is better than all those Avatar movies. Like, get out of here with the Avatar love. Like, I've never seen any of the Avatar movies, and I never plan to. I don't get it. But anyway, some people think that The Godfather 2 is better than the original, and I can see why. I don't agree. I like both of them, but I still like the first one better than the second one. But I can see why people really love Godfather 2 over the first one. I get it. But I like the elements of Godfather 2 that tell Vito Corleone's story. Those are the best parts of Godfather 2, in my opinion. But this might shock some of you, but I've never seen an Aliens movie. So I have no idea if Aliens is better than Alien. But some people believe that. Just like I think The Dark Knight is better than Batman Begins. That's another sequel that I find better than the original. There you go. Like, you could go on and on and on about that whole sequel debate. Do you like this sequel better than the original or not? I think that little segment created a great debate just years and years later. Let's talk about Sydney Prescott. She's great as usual here, and she's actually got, when she's in college, Sydney Prescott, she's got her caller ID because somebody tries to fuck with her there at the very beginning, and she's like, yep, I got you, Corey Gillis, you're busted. So that doesn't go well for Corey Gillis, so he's like, oh shit, and he decides to hang it up. So Sydney, she's getting a little bit smarter here. I mean, you have to kind of forgive her for being a little inexperienced in the first movie because she was just trying to live a normal life, and yet she's got all this unwanted attention and bullshit fame that she never asked for, by the way, but she was just trying to live a normal life, and she tries to get some semblance of that in later movies, but we're here to talk about Scream 2. So then you have Dewey, who comes into the picture, and he's there to watch out for Sydney, even though he doesn't have to. See, that Dewey right there, that's a true friend right there for Sydney. Even though Windsor College is nowhere near Woodsboro, the fact that he came from Woodsboro to be there to watch Sydney's back, that Dewey is a fucking real one. Holy shit. You couldn't ask for a better friend than him, honestly. And then you have Gail that comes back into the picture, who, oh yeah, she ends up starting to be a bitch in this one at the very beginning. So, like the first one, when Sydney punches her fucking lights out, this time Sydney fucking bam backhands her when Gail ambushes her with an interview with Cotton Weary, who Sydney had accused of murdering her mother before, and they were able, Gail was able to help prove Cotton Weary's innocence, and he gets out, gets released, and he's trying to, set the record straight, and he's trying to get his side of the story out there. And I mean, understandably so, because he was falsely accused, so we should definitely let him get his story out there, his side of the story out there, because, a lot of people believed Sydney Prescott when she said that, yeah, he killed my mother, and that wasn't the case. But the way that it was fucked up. The way that Gale ambushed Sydney with Cotton Weary, even Cotton is like, yeah, that was fucked up. He was like, she didn't know. She's like, well, he felt bad for Sydney because he thought that she knew and she didn't, and because of that, Sydney fucking bam backhands her, and she's like, you know what? I'll share more. She was getting ready to fucking pounce and beat Gale's fucking ass. Hell yeah, that's that fire that we love from Sydney. Even though Gale and Sydney are, I would say, best friends at this point in the franchise, but early on, man, Gale was still such a super bitch. At that point, Sydney fucking backhands the shit out of her, and she's like, oh, I'll share. She was getting ready to jump on that bitch and beat the shit living ever piss out of Gale Weathers, but people were there to hold Sydney back, and people know that they were going to witness an epic ass beating in the public eye. That shit was great. And then Gale was like, you know what? I don't want to, you know what? Fuck trying to piss her off again because I'm just going to end up getting slapped, because it leads to the two of them later in Scream 3 when they both see each other, when they see each other again, they go in for an awkward hug, and that was a great touch with Scream 3, even though now they're kind of more comfortable around each other as far as acquaintances. In Scream 3, they still go in for a hug, but it's an awkward hug because Gale doesn't know if she's going to get punched again or not at that point. That was great. I'm sitting here losing my fucking voice. Hold on. All right. So we talked about Sydney and Dewey and Gale. And again, the violence and gore, I don't need to keep going into that, but that's like one thing I love about this movie. About most of these movies, the violence and gore, when it happens, I think it's pretty great. Now, the Friday the 13th and Mrs. Voorhees references or comparisons. Okay, why I bring that up? When Ghostface was calling Casey Becker from the first movie, Ghostface explicitly asks Casey, who is the killer in the original Friday the 13th, meaning the first one, and she is screaming up and down that it's Jason Voorhees. And he's like, I'm afraid you're wrong. That's the wrong answer. And she's like, it's Jason. I've seen that movie 20 goddamn times. I know it's Jason, you motherfucker. Well, she doesn't say the motherfucker part, but I added that in. She's like, it's Jason. I've seen the movie 20 damn times. Damn it, I know what I'm talking about. And then that's when Ghostface drops the bomb on her. Then that's when he says, then you would know that it was... The original killer was Mrs. Voorhees. Jason didn't show up until the sequel, which is a common fact. Jason wasn't the killer until the second one. So there you go. That's a nod toward Mrs. Voorhees and who the killer, the mastermind, is going to be behind this movie. And in this movie, they bring up Friday the 13th or Mrs. Voorhees again in this movie. So they were planning for Mrs. Loomis to be the killer in Scream 2. They clearly had that idea in their heads in advance. That's why they kept dropping Friday the 13th and Mrs. Voorhees being the first killer, but they do a reverse here where the son, Billy Loomis, aka Jason, is the killer in the first one, and then Mrs. Loomis, aka Mrs. Voorhees, is the killer the second time around instead of how Friday the 13th done it. And I like that. They did that. And they kind of give it away, but if you're not paying attention the first time, you're thinking, okay, they're just obviously bringing up movies that they like and all that stuff. But it's a nod, a subtle nod to, okay, we're going to reveal who the killer is without explicitly telling you who it is. But if you're a horror fan, if you're paying attention, you would probably already pick up on that before the reveal. Wes Craven, again, he continues making his baby as far as Scream. At this point, excellent writing with Kevin Williamson. Roger L. Jackson is still the voice. All three of them, great, great, great. The killer reveals. So you have Billy's mother. That's right. Debbie Salt, Laurie Metcalf, who she had previously been on, I know, Roseanne as Aunt Jackie way before Scream 2. I believe Roseanne had already ended by this point. I'm almost sure. I never watched Roseanne, but I know that's where Laurie Metcalf is from. Aunt Jackie, I know her from Roseanne and then Scream 2. So they're like, damn, we saw your work. They probably thought, well, we saw your work on Roseanne and probably other stuff after that and before that. And they're like, you know what? You would make a good Mrs. Voorhees or a good Mrs. Loomis. And yeah, she made a excellent Mrs. Loomis. She's got the fucking crazy eyes. And when she turns it up, she turns it up. Absolutely. So you have Mrs. Loomis, who is Billy's mother, who is the mastermind, and then you have her accomplice, Mickey, who is played by Timothy Oliphant, who happens to be, who was already an active serial killer in the United States when she recruited him in order to help her out. So I'm like, damn, she's that crazy for revenge. So Mrs. Loomis's motive is very straight to the point. In her delusional crazy mind, we'll talk about it, but let's talk about her motive. So she wants to make it look like there's only one ghost face killer because Mickey is left-handed, but Mrs. Loomis is right-handed, but there is one person that she kills. So she decides to use her left hand to kill this individual to make it look like there's only one Ghostface killer because she is planning on framing Mickey for all of the murders and she's planning on getting away with it. So her motive is very simple, straight to the point. She is mad at Sydney for killing her son, which, who she abandoned, by the way, because her husband was fucking around with Maureen Prescott. So she left, she divorced, and Maureen Prescott is kinda at fault, but guess what? Your husband couldn't stop sticking his dick into Maureen Prescott, so he's to blame as well. Maureen Prescott isn't all at fault. Yes, she's at fault, but your husband was also at fault for breaking up the family. Does that mean you had to abandon your son? You didn't have to, but you made that choice. And then when you find out that your son got murdered and that his girlfriend at the time murdered him, oh, now you care and you want to get even Steven, just like Beatrix Kiddo does in Kill Bill. Great movie. If you haven't seen Kill Bill, great fucking movie. So Mrs. Loomis wants to get even Steven. She wants to kill Sydney and Gail and Dewey and anybody else that had anything to do with that, especially Sydney, and she wants to get away with it. So she has hired a active serial killer, and that is actually thinking of it in delusional ways, that's actually pretty smart to actively hunt somebody who's already an active serial killer. Man, you got crazy on your side. But what he doesn't know is she's actively planning on killing him and framing him for the murders so she can get away with it. And well, there you go. That obviously does not happen. Now, Cotton Weary is a huge red herring, probably the best red herring of the franchise. So what I mean by that is, so Cotton Weary gets framed for murdering Maureen Prescott and he serves a year in jail, but Gale's able to prove his innocence by the end of the first movie. Sometime after he gets out, he wants to tell his side of the story, and there are moments where Cotton Weary, he just wants a Diane Sawyer interview with Sidney Prescott to get his side of the story out there. And you can understand that, but how he goes about it, it's like he has stalkery behavior toward Sidney Prescott. He's hounding her for an interview, hounding her over this interview. And it gets to the point where he ends up finding her in the library, and she tries to walk away, and he raises his voice to the point where it gets attention. He ends up getting arrested momentarily, but like, even Cotton says it, okay, well, you got me for raising my voice in a library, but I mean, other than that, what else do you got on me? So they have no choice but to let him get, they have no choice but to let him go, because he didn't actually do anything other than raise his voice in the library. So there's kind of like moments like, you would think that, oh, Cotton Weary's around and you have Ghostface around. You think that might be connected? You would maybe think so, because I'm sure Cotton Weary feels a certain way about being falsely accused of murder. And wouldn't that have been a twist if Cotton Weary would have actually been Ghostface? He's like, you know what? I was falsely identified. I was falsely accused of being a murderer. And he's like, you know what? I've had enough. So I'm going to start killing people for real. And Cotton Weary, he has a right to feel that would have been something else if, that would have been something else if he would have been Ghostface. But it turns out he shows up there toward the end after Mrs. Loomis and Sidney Prescott are fighting each other, trying to kill each other rather. And he shows up to save the day. And he says to Sidney, oh, I bet that Diane Sawyer interview is looking real good right about now. Mrs. Loomis has Sidney at knife point, knife to the throat. Cotton has his gun pointed at the both of them, and he just shoots Mrs. Loomis in the chest after Sidney agrees to the interview. And I'm sure Cotton wasn't actually going to let Mrs. Loomis kill Sidney over a fucking interview. I seriously doubt that. But he just wanted confirmation. Like, he wanted that interview so fucking bad. I don't think there's been another red herring that has been done better. Because you got to think about it. Cotton Weary was accused of murder, and that, you would think that if that was a reason to have him start murdering people for real, you could understand it, because he's like, this little fucking, this little bitch accused me of murder, and he's like, fuck it, you know what, I'm gonna start killing people for real now, because that was a year of my life taken away because of a false accusation. And they haven't done a red herring better than Cotton Weary. Nah, not even close. That was a well thought out red herring of Cotton Weary, of him possibly being behind the Ghostface killings in Windsor College. That was really well done. Now we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, and then we're going to be done. We're going to be done. Randy Meek's death. Okay, so back then, this death upset a lot of people. And, don't get me wrong. I like Randy. I like what he brought in for the first two. Well, I guess he technically was in the third one with that videotape that his sister had, who, his sister ends up being the mother to Mindy and Chad Meeks later on. So he was, I guess, technically in the third one as a quick little cameo, but as far as him still being alive, Gail Weathers was supposed to get this phone call originally, but Randy answers the phone call instead. And while Gail and Dewey are looking for whoever's talking, making the phone call, they unsuccessfully find the caller, because the caller is hiding in Gail's news van the whole time. And without ever thinking about it, Randy, he gets close to the news van and he's talking shit about Billy Loomis. And even Mrs. Loomis admits this, that, Mrs. Loomis said that Randy was talking poorly about Billy, so I got a little knife happy. So when Randy is close to the van, she quickly opens that van door and just snatches Randy in broad daylight, closes the van, and stabs the fuck out of him. And mind you, she doesn't do it with her right hand. She does it with her left hand, as she is still planning on framing Mickey to make it look like only one Ghostface killer, because that is a very, very important detail, because most people might not notice that in movies, but even for a movie that is well thought out, because you might have one killer or one person that is right-handed and the other person might be left-handed, and Mrs. Loomis is using her weaker hand to kill Randy, to stab him to death, to make it look like Mickey did it. And that is very well thought out, even for a movie. Most movies wouldn't give a shit and they would just lazily write it in. But no, that is some well thought out execution on the parts of the actor, of Laurie Metcalf and Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson and everybody else that was involved in that decision. Let's have her use her left hand instead of her right hand. Just that simple little motion, that's intelligent. That is intelligent writing that is missing from a lot of fucking modern movies. It's sad what movies have become today. They aren't as sharp as these older movies. No, nowhere near. I don't think they ever will, because the creativity is dead. It's gone. It's gone. So yeah, most people were upset by the Randy death. I was surprised by it back in the day, but looking back at it now, yeah, it was shocking, but I didn't get too upset about it. The Dewey death, now that fucking shit pissed me off. The Dewey's death, that pissed me off a whole lot more than the Randy death. Not to say that the Randy death wasn't sad, it was. I like that it raised the stakes that, you know, any of the surviving characters from the first one could die, right? So I like that they did that. Now we'll talk about this one last thing, and then I gotta go edit this, and I already got the thumbnail. This is gonna be a long ass video. So let's talk about the two detectives. What I mean by that is their deaths. So later, toward the end of the movie, these two detectives that were hired by the local police station to look after Sydney, to watch her on campus, after Randy's death, they decide to take her to a safe house at nighttime, and they're on the road in the middle of the town, and Ghostface he jumps both of the detectives. He slashes one of their throats, and then, I believe he does slash one of their throats, and then one of the detectives, I think he ends up yanking out the other detective. Somehow, the detective, he ends up outside of the car. Ghostface is in the driver's seat, and he's like, you know, get out, freeze, motherfucker. That's what the detective says, and that's when Ghostface puts pedal to the metal, hits the detective, only for them to run into all of these pipes and all of this construction stuff, and the car crashes into it, and one of the pipes goes through the fucking detective's head to the point where you see a close-up of his skull still moving and pulsing. Like, ooh, like, oh my god, that was brutal. Probably the most brutal death in this movie, because the way that the pole is through his head and the way that his skull is still pulsing and his hand is still kind of just twitching a little bit as he's dying. Like, man, brutal stuff. I could be here all day and talk about Scream, but I feel like I have enough that I've already talked about. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but this video is going to easily eclipse 2 hours, and I did not mean for this video to be that long, but here we are. So, of course, I will have timestamps. I will explain that in a post. So for each of these movies, I will definitely have timestamps in the description below, in case there's a certain movie that you want to go ahead and get to and you don't want to watch the whole thing. There will be timestamps for all of this. I just want to say that I had a ball making this video. I wasn't planning for this to be 2 hours plus, but here we are. And I'm going to try to get this out today on Wednesday, but it might be Thursday. I don't know, depending on how long this actual video is. So, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this re-ranking. I know most people, you know, would already be way done, but I really get into Scream. Scream, baby. Scream 7, as far as I'm concerned, is still the best movie of this year, and I doubt that's going to be topped, because there's not really a whole lot I'm interested in nowadays. Nah, not really. I mean, could Spider-Man Brand New Day? Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that, but I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I'll eventually catch that. I'll eventually catch that one eventually. I'm not going to go to the theater and see it because I don't know. Like, I like Tom Holland. He's great as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker, but like it's some of the other surrounding cast characters such as Zendaya as MJ. Like, I don't, could they have went? They should have went with somebody else as MJ, in my opinion. I mean, I don't really actively search for Zendaya movies. I only see her in Spider-Man, and it ain't because of her. Trust me. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all this edited and upload this as soon as I can. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. And I want to thank each of you for also stopping by. And how would you rank all 7 Scream movies? If you want to rank all of them, if you want to leave your ranking in the comments below, definitely feel free to do so. I would love to see your ranking. And no matter if you're an OG subscriber, or if you've been here for a little bit, or if you just got here, I very much appreciate each and every one of you just the same. And thank you again. I am Beak, and I'm going to go fly away back to my nest. Until next time, bye guys.